Oh, I didn't even turn my live feed off. Hey, everybody. We are live today. Today is the 28th of December 2017. I hope everybody feels good after the Flatmas festivities. The panel so far, we have Judith from Israel, we have Patricia from the UK, we have artists from Germany, and we have Mathew from America. So hello, everybody.
How's it going?
Hello.
Mathew asked when we started, and what's happening today? And I thought, it's a Mathew evening.
Yay.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to share my findings with everybody so that way I can see where everybody else sits and how it sits with everybody else, as far as what your guys' research is, and if we're able to make any connecting points. That's my main goal. So I'm trying to find the grand unified theory of everything, take all a religion, put it all together, figure out where the findings are and what the truth is behind religion, where religion and belief and faith started. Religion, aka faith. And then where did science start? All the common grounds between all of science that you have. Because we've got physics of all kinds of levels from micro to macro, and then you've got chemistry, and then there's the mathematics of everything, trying to find the common ground there. But then you've got the third factor in all this. You've got three main factors that the whole world works off of, and that's basically faith, which revolves around politics and religion, stuff like that. And then you've got science, education, knowledge, wisdom. And then you've got metaphysics. And metaphysics is basically everything spiritual. So you've got your material, your spiritual, and then you've got everything else, pretty much. So I'm trying to explain everything all in a sense to where nobody's fighting anymore. Everybody has a common ground. Everybody can be like, we're the ones that are right and they're wrong. Or, hey, this guy has a half truth and that guy has a half truth and this guy has a half truth, but if we put them all together, it's going to create one whole truth. I want to find that one whole so that way everybody can look at it and be like, huh, when you put it that way, it actually, that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I have to say, Mathew,
What?
that was one thing that people, like when I put a part of your video up, remember that's how it started. They went,
Yeah.
I like the way this guy explains things. Made it quite
Yeah.
simple. They're quite deep subjects, aren't they, for just the normal Joe, if you know what I mean.
Oh
It's not like you
yeah.
sit down at the Pizza Hut place going, hey, electromagnetics and
Oh yeah.
how does this work? And, a lot of people
Well,
don't talk like that.
all of my research immediately starts and is based with the automatic truth that the earth is flat. It just starts with that because of, I mean, I'll get into it, but it's just the very beginning from the toroidal flow, the dual toroidal flow that creates the plane of equilibrium. So there's no other way for matter to uh, have built up with the force that's around earth except for being on a plane rather than a ball. uh, so I base everything off of that. And then from
Mathew, like, was this something you would? I know that you might have explained it the other day, but this is your hangout today. So, how did you get into all this first of all before you launch off into this? Because you said you've been researching.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, my very first deep thought I ever had was when I was real little. I had just got done watching a bunch of military stuff with my dad, who at the time was real deep in the military himself. And we went outside to go stargazing just as a before nighttime activity. And he caught stars in there and he was showing me what they look like, and it kind of blew my mind that they looked so odd and so beautiful and colorful. But then what struck my mind after that was the pulsing that I saw pulsate. And then just the random thought occurred to me, and I believe it was because I had just watched the military movie. But what if God is trying to talk to us through the stars using Morse code? The stars is the code, and you just had to find the geometric, the patterns in the stars to find out what he's trying to tell you, what secret he's trying to relay, by looking at the blinking and stuff like. But anyways,
Have you seen the
that was
moon
like
do
my
that?
first thought.
Have you seen the moon do that sort of blinking thing?
If you look real closely at it, if you stare at it, but then again, people will chalk that kind of stuff up to atmospheric, interference, stuff like that. So what I mean, I started off pretty simple and pretty small in my truth quest when it comes to people, because when you bring up certain arguments that are easily debatable, you can never find any common ground, because no matter what, there's always going to be that hard-headed person out there that's going to be like, well, you know what, this way works and this way has worked my entire life, so I'm not going to listen to the way that it works for you because it's different from my way. But if you present to them an idea or something to where they cannot refute it, it's the smoking gun. They look at it and they see the science behind it, and they see all the proof how you got the science behind it, and then they see the end result, and they're like, okay, well, I honestly don't know how to look around that. This is kind of perplexing a bit, and I've got no other questions. If they're a logical person that's not gonna let cognitive dissonance run their life.
You quite liked a post that Chris Monk had done, didn't you, today or yesterday?
The what?
You quite liked a post on Sun and Moon that Chris Monk did about the moon?
Yeah, I think I was it would depend. I'd have to check it out. Like I said, right when you told me that we've got about an hour to go before we went live today, I was in an in-depth study on Egyptian symbology and its connection to actual science, because I don't see Egyptian hieroglyphs and pictoglyphs as psychological, as far as like this means, the afterlife, and this means death, and this means life. Well, I actually see that they mean actual knowledge, science. Like this symbol right here is the symbol for electromagnetism. This one right here is the symbol for a capacitor. This one right here is for a transmitter and a receiver, and this one right here is that's what I see when I look at them. And then you look at the readings and you start realizing that the sun is a symbol for light, and the rays are a symbol for electromagnetism, because the rays, at the end of them, there's always a hand at the end of the rays, and a lot of the times the hand is handing down the ankh, which is the symbol for electromagnetism. I like looking into stuff like that, trying to get into the science of it all.
Yeah, you said that you were going to talk about this Egyptian stuff, so do you want to do it then?
Yeah, well, I'm going to get into it a little bit after I actually explain my basis for everything, so that way everybody can follow what I'm trying to, what I'm saying and why I believe what I believe. The people that I studied and looked up on and researched thoroughly were people like Tesla and J.J. Thomson, Steinmetz, Heaviside. There was here, I've got a few of them written down. Eric Dollard, J.C. Maxwell, Edison, Roger Boscovich. There's some good people right there. Ken Wheeler and Scientific Lee. Those are all people that I researched and studied in order to get to the conclusion that I'm at right now. And all of these people, they all base their information upon the ether. And as soon as people disregarded the ether and experimentation and replaced it with mathematics, all these people that I just mentioned, they all agreed that that's when true science and progression stopped. We came to a halt when we, exchanged research and experimentation for mathematics. So with that being said, that leads me to my theory, which basically is this. In the very beginning, before there was everything, before there was even space, there was the ether, because there is no ether within space. There is only space within the ether. Because within the ether, it is basically your field. That is your field that everything exists within, kind of like an empty swimming pool. The emptiness within the borders of the swimming pool would be the ether. And then as soon as you poured water into it, that would now be the space within the ether. And then if you were to say throw a rock into it, and then you created a disturbance or a perturbation. Now you've got something created within that ether. That's the premise to my entire theory right here. Theories, multiple right here. So when you got the ether and there's a perturbation.
It goes in an order then, Matthew. It goes in an order. That's the order.
Yeah. It does. Honestly, it goes in order. But once the perturbation started, it's kind of like it created a continuum effect. You know, basically like your three continuums: time, space, and energy. You can't have one without the other two. Like if you had time and energy, but no space, where would you put the energy? Energy and space, but no time. When would you put the energy? So these things are continuums. All three of these things, they just immediately coalesce and come to existence because of creation and existence, basically. When there's a perturbation within the ether, it creates a point of inertia. That point of inertia, it is basically a point of stillness, you know, because the ether, it's an unpolarized dielectric field. Dielectric meaning it has the property to move and transmit energy, but without the loss of energy, you know, so it doesn't lose it through vibration, sound, heat.
As everything was in the dark,
Yeah.
would it have made any difference to what that ether was in the dark?
Well, everybody automatically assumes to be able to see the ether, you know, as like this beautiful glowing, you know, energy all around. But the ether to me is just, it's an unseen, untouchable energy. It exists because it's like the paper that, you know, you would need in order to create a painting. You have to have something, because you can't just paint a picture in the middle of, you know, because there's nothing there. You've got to have something in order to create a pawn. So I believe that's what the ether is. You know, it's kind of like the primordial fire mist, the essence of life itself, and everything comes from the ether, the energy, because everything is the energy of the ether broken down to its absolute fundamental self.
Just say
which is
that
explained.
FPV's joined us. Just to say FPV's joined us. Hi, FPV. FPV's
right on.
Hey, FPV. Hello, people.
Hey,
Sorry,
FPV.
He's come to listen,
That's all good.
Matthew. He's come to listen to what you've got to say.
Awesome. So when there's a perturbation within the ether, because it's an unpolarized dielectric field, it creates a polarized field around a point of inertia, and energy moves in a double helix formation. You know, that's the flow in which energy actually moves when it transmitted, and that's seen throughout all of nature. When you look at water, when you look at through ferrocells, everything, you've got this rotating, you know, DNA double helix kind of pattern that it flows in. Well, now that energy seeks an equilibrium. It seeks that point of inertia because it's stillness, and energy is constantly in motion. It needs to come to a rest, and it wants to. That's what everything wants. It looks for equilibrium. So as the energy spot, you know, it's moving past and it senses that point of inertia, that point of rest, it now seeks it out and it comes to that point. Well, what happens, since it rotates in a double helix formation and it comes down, it squeezes down into that point, creating a vortex into just that single point. Well, when that vortex comes in and it sucks everything into it, so that way it meets that point of inertia, it hits that point of inertia and expels back outwards, because you've got this singular little point right here. I mean, we're not talking about the Big Bang, you know, singularity. We're just talking about a point of nothingness that, you know, it's nothingness you cannot contain within the nothingness. So now it expels back out, but it still wants that nothingness. So what does it do? It comes back around and it goes back in to try to find that equilibrium again, and keeps getting expelled out into this constant formation. Now, what do we have? We have a torus. We've got that toroidal flow of energy into this torus. But what does that do? That creates a point of inertia at the bottom of this torus where everything's getting expelled outwards, and it's creating that energy seeking from the other side. So now you've got energy coming in seeking, and it comes in the opposite flow, because when it comes up and it hits that other point of inertia and they want to meet each other, it creates a it creates an attraction. When you've got positive and negative, it creates that attraction. So now you've got the rotating coming in on both sides, and you've got creating a plane of equilibrium in between these two toroidal flows. Now energy has a place where it's being forced and stuck to, and it's trying to flow back out, but it's all being concentrated into this plane before it could come back out and try to get back around and see this point of inertia again. So now you've got all this energy concentrating, and this energy is concentrating, and all of a sudden it's all bouncing and moving and flowing into each other with different flows, different frequencies. And this creates a density, because it just concentrates to a point of a density, creating a mass. And now you have matter, which instead of matter, since it, matter kind of points to particles and particulates, stuff like that, parts, since I believe everything is based off of fields and energy and concentrated energy, I like to go with the word elemental material instead of matter, because it's materialized, elemental energy. So that's what I like to say. So Earth, instead of being made of matter, it's made of elemental materials. Crystal, lightning, energy, this and that, broken down to its absolute basis when you look at absolutely everything. And this is undisputable, actually. If you look at all forms of science, they all say at the same time, if you get a powerful enough microscope and you look deep enough, you'll see that everything vibrates in an energy formation. Everything vibrates. Even quantum physics will say that, because the photon isn't mass, and it's like, dual wave particle duality and whatnot. They say that it's just a ball of energy, just a little point of energy that floats around. So everything at its basis is energy, and that's where I get this whole sum from. So now you've got this toroidal flow that's around the Earth on both sides. You've got the top and you've got the bottom. Well, you've got the top being up here, so we've got the matter and everything being created, and this is going to start creating a spin of energy all around everything that it's around, and everything that it's around is going to create kind of like a spin around it too. If you were to take like a ball or something, spin it really, really fast inside of a closed room, well, the air around it will start circulating around the ball. Same principle right here. That'll give you the motion and the circulation of the luminaries that are all around. Well, I believe that this etheric field, basically, when the perturbation was created and it created a dielectric field of inertia of energy, it created it in a form of a density like fluid, like liquid. But that I'm still researching because of the sonoluminescence, the stars above and all around.
So where do you reckon all the matter came from then?
Well, matter, like I said, elemental matter is the result of the two toroidal flows that are coming in. You got two toruses, think of two donuts like this, and then one on the other side, and they're both pushing all the energy right here. And instead of pushing it to a point and allowing it to just expand back out and come back into it, it pushes it into a point right here and to a point right here. And since you have both of the flows, now it's squeezing it into this plane of equilibrium. All this energy is being pushed and extra pushed and squeezed into this plane. And due to the different frequencies and the different energies that are flowing around, it concentrates and creates elemental material, down to the micro size. And
okay, so
elemental material
is that still all happening
condensed, and then they
stay here, Mathew? Because that stuff's here now.
The what?
The matter is here now. Is that still happening?
Well, yeah.
Without the toroidal field, we just wouldn't be here.
Oh, absolutely not. No, without the toroidal field, there's nothing. Everything in the universe has a toroidal field around it. Everything, down to the very essence. And it's not just like one toroidal field. It's an unlimited number toroidal fields within toroidal fields, because every little particulate of matter, it all has its own point of inertia, and they all come together, and then it just creates a larger field and a larger field and a larger field. But within it, you've still got these individual points that were created in order to keep this, field growing, to create what we have now today within our known, universal area. Because like I said, I believe the earth is flat, and I believe that it's flat due to God. That's my personal belief. It's just, I try to explain everything in the most scientific way, in the most scientific fashion, in order to bring the minds of this time to an understanding. Because today, unfortunately, if you immediately start with God and faith, people are more scientific. They're more, literal and logical today, and they just shut down. They shut off, and they don't care about what you have to say, no matter if you're different than all the other previous preachers they've ever come across, because you're coming across to them like, hey, I'm not just going to tell you about, like, hey, just have faith, hey, this and that one. No, I'm going to tell you like, hey, this is scientifically how it went down. Like, yeah, God spoke, and all of a sudden there was creation. But how did that happen? Well, there was a science behind it, and it's the most wismatic science that exists, because it's God's science. It's his true magic, and it was dealt through vibration, frequency, and energy. Those three things all put together is cause and effect. It's the balance. And it's not just duality, because everybody forgets where there's a positive and negative as well. So everything isn't just based off of duality, because you've got the center point of inertia as well. Yeah, you've got as above, so below. But we live on that point of inertia in between the below and the above. So we got to focus on what's going on the in between. We've only got so much time in this physical world before we move on in a spiritual sense to exist for all of eternity. So if I have 100 years, which I doubt I'm ever going to come close to, but if that's all I have in this corporeal state, then I'm going to take every last bit of knowledge that I can with me before I move on to learn an eternity of spiritualism. I don't feel like wasting my time on too much spiritualism. I've done that most of my life, and it didn't get me a whole lot of anywhere except for a lot of questions and only a couple of answers. Now I'm looking at everything in a logical sense, that it's explaining the spirituality, but in a way that's allowing me and the people around me that's in this time with a logical, scientific mind to understand.
But that's because you're
Does
so
that make
clever,
sense?
Matthew.
Well, I honestly, I give it all up to God. I pray and I ask for an understanding, because my mind works logically. I can't help it. And it honestly bugs a lot of people and puts a lot of people off from talking to me.
Is to know who you are, really, to find yourself and know who you are. Once you get that
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Move on, don't you? Take that with you.
Pretty much. Once I think spirituality in the corporeal sense, as spiritual as we need to get, is to locate a purpose. That's as spiritual as we need to get in our corporeal state, because think about it. You have an eternity to answer questions, and you could contemplate, what is life for the next, 20,000 years during your eternity. And that's going to be nothing. That's going to be like a quick little, fly past in time, because it's eternity. Whereas right now we're experiencing time in a much different fashion, which I believe is because we're in that point of equilibrium compared from the above and the below, as above, so below, the eternity, the eternal death or the eternal life. So we're right in the middle. We're experiencing that corporeal state, the state of equilibrium, the state of matter, which the Bible talks about. They call it, limbo, the waiting time, the waiting. We're basically kind of like it's like our consciousness was the energy that's seeking out this equilibrium, and now we're at a resting point until we die and we move on.
Just would like to say that the chat room, Unconscious says this is great, with a big thumbs up.
Thanks. A lot of my theory, this whole thing is this. What I've explained so far is just the creation experience. That's it, and that's even explaining it without the use of the terms of vibration, energy, and frequency, which are all needed. Frequency being the intelligence behind vibration, and vibration being the source of energy. So that, what I mean by that is like, you have to have the thought, the frequency, the thought, the intelligence, in order to reach out and tune the vibration, the frequency of the vibration. You got to create that frequency, but you got to know what the frequency is, and you got to be able to tune it, to that, in order for the vibration to exist that allows that bit of energy to exist. That's where God comes in my in theory. You can't leave God out because that etheric energy that existed in the very beginning before anything else, it doesn't exist without vibration. And
Do
that
you see that
vibration,
we're all
it
part of
doesn't
one
exist without frequency.
consciousness? Do you see
Huh?
that we're part of all? Do you see that we're part of one consciousness? That we're all together, and God is everything, and we are God. We're part of the whole thing. Without us, there isn't God.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Without God, there is no us. But without us, God is still going to be, because God is the primal intelligence. Everybody immediately just says God is the creator. Well, is the director before he's the creator, because he directs the frequencies and the currents of the universe in order for those currents and frequencies to create. So to me, God is more than just a creator. He is more than just the one that created everything and allows everything to be. He's the one that literally, like, without the sense of thought and intelligence, which is God, you can't create, because you can't direct in order to create. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I muted my mic and I couldn't get back. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
whatever God
that's
is,
how
though,
I see it in my sense.
pretty magical and amazing, and this is just incredible. This whole thing, how we are here in this on this plane, don't you think? It's all incredible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's basically a miracle all on its own as far as humans go and how we came to be, because I can explain uh, how material, elemental material came to be, and how energy flows and time came to existence, and the, movement of the stars. I could even explain about what thought is and everything, but explain certain creations like human beings. I just can't, because the amount of intricacy that went into creating an organism like us is beyond. If you guys get down into it, like I'm, with my and the point of inertia and all that, it goes down into basically like a huge Tesla coil. There's a coil, there's a capacitor, there's a spark gap, there's a top load, there's, everything, the transformer. And everything works like that, just like our human bodies. Our human bodies have a capacitor within them, an energy core. We have our nervous system is kind of like the coil that in the transmitter that allows the energy to move everywhere throughout us. And then when we speak and when we project energy and we move and we do things, that's the energy projecting itself, kind of like the top ladder, except we're not projecting little, bolts of electricity. We're just doing things. I'm emitting an energy, the vibrations that I'm creating. My muscles are moving because of the energy being pumped into them from the system that has been created by me. And everybody says perpetual energy doesn't exist. Well, I'm a walking, talking example of perpetual energy. I may grow and die and everything because of the organism, the organic part of me. But as far as the energy source and the way that we were built, perpetual energy wise, it's a perfect system. It re-heals itself when injured or fixed or broken or damaged. It's able to learn, and it's able to adapt. Our biological system is so incredibly creative. It's like the most advanced electrical circuit system ever created, and it was done specifically by an intelligent source, naming us. Nothing else could have
Our
done
whole
the human
bodies
thing
are
for
just
God.
absolutely amazing, aren't they? I mean,
The what?
how someone put us together and made us, like, with veins, heart, lungs, kidneys, eating, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, animals, all living things are just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely amazing. I love the fact
We're
that
a bit like a robot, though. We're just a living robot in a sense, because what are we really doing here? It's got to be a bit more than just procreating, isn't it?
You can think about that. Well, I believe that the reason why we're here is because we're here to mature. Our conscious selves, ourselves that actually make our uh we're trying to mature that self in order to move on, in order to keep continuing in our eternal existence. We existed before. We're just in a state of rest. Think of this ether as the intelligence, as the the pathway of intelligence, the nerve system of the universe that allows intelligence to traffic itself. Basically, what we get to tap into when we're on the internet. I think so, in a sense. Um, when that energy comes in, that information comes in and finds that plane of equilibrium, only so much of it is available because so much sticks to the top, whereas all that condensed information or wisdom energy that's now created the matter, you can't get to that because it's too deep. You can only get what's on the surface. So we're only able to scratch the surface of our intelligence because that's all that's available to us in this plane of equilibrium. But once we move on and we're now back in the constant flow, now information is going to be just like a known thing. It's just going to come back to us again. But it's not going to be like in the sense that we think. We're not going to think like, I can't, solve the, mathematical equation of the century and blah, blah, blah. But when I die, I'll be able to explain it just like that. It's not like that. We'll be able to understand everything in a sense far beyond what we can comprehend, as far as like the hypergeometry of the entire universe, the true secrets behind the golden ratio, why everything is created, how it's created, the different, fractals and everything that goes along with it. That's that as far as our intelligence goes and what we're able to do and take. That's why we're here. We're trying to uh, find that state of equilibrium, that state of rest, our energy, because we're in a constantly flowing and now we're resting. And while we're here resting, we're in a different form now. Uh, I can't explain that. I'm still learning. I don't know everything.
Do you think that
And
consciousness
we're
has
trying to move on.
been trying to be changed? Because we kind of know maybe that the pyramid people were different. They were, using telepathy. They were able to sort of move.
I don't know if they were using telepathy. I honestly believe it was technology. The antediluvian people, pre-flood people, the Nephilim, they were the ones, I believe, the fallen ones that took the knowledge from Adam and from his descendants and from the fallen. All that knowledge got brought together and it created the great civilizations of the past. They knew of certain things. They knew of the geometry patterns, of the energies of the universe. Like every pyramid, like the ley lines of the entire plane that we're on are there because of mineral deposits within the earth. There's the mineral deposits that create the mineral veins of the earth, and not all of them, but some of them or most of them, whatever amount of them, have electrical properties to where they can contain those energies. Now that creates our ley lines. Those are brought in from the Birkeland currents, which are the cosmic currents that run from everywhere around us. They take the energy and the vibrational frequencies of the stars and they travel them all the way to Earth, where they penetrate the Earth, that acts kind of like the transformer and soaks into these Birkeland, or not Birk, but soaks into these mineral veins, these ley lines. Well, that's why pyramids were built directly on top of those ley line center points. Not just anywhere randomly on the ley lines, but they found the connecting center points, the larger, more energetic ley lines. And they looked at the stars directly above them. They said, well, okay, so we understand the Birkeland currents brought the energy from those stars. We're going to line these pyramids up directly with those stars, so that way the focused pyramid shape will be able to take that magnetic effect and pull those Birkeland currents. Instead of having the Birkeland currents just coming in and saturating everything, now they could take the Birkeland current and focus it into the point of that pyramid, down into the inner workings of that pyramid, where it worked as an electroconductor, kind of like a Tesla coil, and created energy for them, allowed them to have power, and it saturated the ground with energy and electromagnetic fields that created an abundant, beautiful, incredible oasis of a land. And as soon as that power and source of energy was gone, they died out and the people left. They were gone. When that source of energy was taken, because those you hear about the fact that so and so country ransacked this country and destroyed their libraries and their knowledge, and they pillaged them, stole this and that, and then soon after the country died out, everybody moved away and abandoned them. I mean, why would you abandon three of the biggest monuments built upon the entire plane, the pyramids? Those incredible things. I mean, I know there's some other ones and there's bigger ones elsewhere, but why would a whole civilization just abandon? Well, because they weren't producing the power anymore. Why weren't they producing the power? Because what was once held there, the Ark of the Covenant. Well, the Ark of the Covenant was a capacitor, kind of. Within the box, you had certain materials that they would put inside of the box, I believed were chemicals, and that created a reaction that created a plasma discharge in between the two wings of the cherubim that were looking at each other on the ark. Well, when that happened, the energy that flowed down and fed the ley lines and everything, now that it's all connected and it's all energized, it's got its electromagnetic field around it, energizing all of the materials and the liquids that are within the pyramid structure. And the whole thing is literally just this massive reactor, not radioactive or anything like that, but just this huge reactor that gave them power and saturated their ground. It's why they were so incredible. It's why every civilization around pyramids were incredible and just had knowledge that we can't fathom. That's what I believe that they came in, not levitation, not, mind power, stuff like that, but because they had a true understanding of the real science, the real magic that is all around us that we don't understand, but that they could utilize.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What I want to ask you a question. What do you think that the downfall of those high advanced civilizations? What caused the downfall, the dumbing down? Because you can see the older structures are the most advanced, and you can clearly see that the building technology digressed to simpler buildings with smaller stones with mortar between them, because the oldest one don't have mortar between them because they simply didn't need mortar, because they could build in such an advanced technology and in a way that with such a big heavy blocks of around 100 to 500 tons. What do you think that that whole civilization basically went downhill and became more every time became slightly less advanced?
Well, I believe it was because of the knowledge was either destroyed or stolen. Like the Library of Alexandria. I believe that the Egyptians, the antediluvians back in the day, they created this massive library that held most of the knowledge of the ancient world. Not all of it, because a lot of it was still hidden away in other temples and other, pyramid stuff like that. But they were all, ransacked by different civilizations. Well, when Egypt was ransacked by Rome, way back when, they basically destroyed the Library of Alexandria and all the knowledge that came along with it. I believe when that happened, the best of their knowledge stayed with those that were allowed to have it. Because unlike us nowadays, where knowledge is free, and say even if the internet went down today, the combined knowledge that has been given to the people of today, we would be able to rebuild, libraries to explain everything. Back in those days, only specific people were allowed to have this knowledge. So either they were killed when the knowledge was destroyed, or they take the knowledge and all they had was word of mouth, what they could remember. In their old age, they started to, forgetting things, or they didn't relay everything and stuff died with them, and word of mouth, of course, we know word of mouth gets spread and things start to change, actual truths because it wasn't spoken correctly or was added to or taken away, stuff like that. So I think a lot of knowledge was stolen or hidden away or destroyed, and we had to do everything.
We had this guy called John Cowrie on. John Cowrie is the guy who has said that the pyramid 2030 is a pyramid. It's not just a piece of earth, it's a pyramid. But He came on a few days before Christmas, And he thought that Noah was never an ark, a boat with animals. It was probably a pyramid of knowledge. He was there to keep all the information. And he said, would you save like how to grow the plants and all that kind of history and cultivation and all that? Would you save all that, or would you save the animals? And he reckoned it was actually, you would save the knowledge.
You know, I had never thought about that before. I've never made that connection, just because of the fact that the boat was so well described as being a boat. The materials themselves were so well described, the dimensions. There's not a lot of things in the Bible, just measurements and materials for what was made. And Noah's boat was very specific in detail compared to most things. But that makes me question.
Most things are the opposite.
It makes me question about what I was saying before, as far as word of mouth. Things get changed, translations, transliterations, mistranslations, stuff like that. I've always had the idea that since there's no way with the dimensions and everything that it was given, that animals of every kind plus food for animals of every kind was able to fit on this boat for as long as it was, and everything that went along with it detail wise. But if they had a technology to harness DNA, then I could actually see this boat working, because I mean, they were able to harness DNA. So with each male and female lion, they had, male lion DNA, female lion DNA, and then they had enough DNA to create, 7 of each of their food supplies. So that way their food supply would continue in abundance for these lions, and stuff. That's just, those were my ideas. I never thought of it as being a building somewhere, because I mean, it said it floated on the waters and then it rested upon a mountain. So I mean, maybe it's talking about the materials floating across the oceans for 40 days until the end ark or the end, pyramid or structure was rested upon a mountain somewhere. I don't know. That's a great theory.
It's just that most things seem to be the opposite. And, like, we've had quite a few chats with Santos Bonacci and Bro, and, like, God actually could be mother. It's not a man, it's a female sort of, it's femaleness. And they've changed it. They've changed us into this male-orientated, everything's male-orientated, but everything originally was from Mother Earth, Mother.
Well, if you actually want to hear interesting...
The Mi'kmaq tribe, they have God or the father, but the father always has a mother. There's always a mother they talk about.
That's a curious one too. I think I've ran across that one. One I just came across this morning was somebody was talking about, well, flat earthers want to be so literal, and truthers want to be so literal about their things, and they're shutting everybody down about the name of Jesus because it's the Roman use of the name of the Son of God and not the God's use of it himself. But then you got this one guy. He's like, he actually made sense, because he's like, if you want to be literal about it and go off the Hebrew word and meaning, back in the day when they used the word God, they used the word Elohim. And Elohim is a plural word. It's not a singular word. And it actually translated to mighty ones. So if everybody wants to get as literal as you want to possibly get and as down to the point, then the Bible, there is not one God. There are a multitude. And it's they were called the mighty ones, aka the Elohim.
I always wondered when it said myself, pagan people.
Yeah, well, when it said in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Huh?
They had God. The pagans and those kind of cultures, they all had gods, not one God. We have one. We worship one.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I've been looking back at it, and I can't find any other serious religions in the world besides ours where there is one single solitary deity. I mean, some of them have like not the Rome, but the Greeks, they had, they had like the god of gods, And then they had like the lowercase gods underneath him, his kids, which were kind of like our half gods today. But I don't really see any being like ours where we make it to where it's just one single God, period. There are no others. That is it. But the original Hebrew ancient text used the word Elohim, which was plural and meant mighty ones. But then you got to go before this whole faith-based system even came up with the Elohim. Why? Because there's stories in the Bible that existed thousands of years before the faith-based Elohim, language or anything like that even came up because of the Sumerians. The Sumerians talked about a few of the stories in the Bible, including the flood. So if the flood happened in the Sumerian text, just way before the biblical faith was even founded, then why does the Bible claim 100% rights to the flood's story, saying that it was Noah and that it was God, and then he did this and he did that, whereas the Sumerian text said it was a different name, and this is why it happened, and this is what happened, and this is why it happened. A few of the things were changed and details were changed, but the stories in total were pretty much the same. So getting technical, you know what I mean?
That's okay. We're here to talk.
Yeah.
It's just obviously along the way, we've been listening to a lot of people say these, especially this bit about mother and the fact that they used to worship as mother, and then it's all been changed to a more male orientated, and then suddenly we've got God.
Right.
And then it's like we're doing.
I heard that it was
of everything we're supposed to do. Everything seems to be the opposite. With the ball, we're not on a ball, we're on a plane. Things aren't millions of miles away; they're miles away, and everything's the other way around.
Yeah, everything literally is the opposite. I mean, it goes based off of that whole ancient saying, as above, so below, as above. Basically, just saying, balance. There's the balance, but I don't think that one major aspect has been realized in the modern days that they did realize back in the ancient days, and that was the fact that there's not just above and below, because we live in between above and below.
And we've talked about that, but you've been researching now, and you were going to talk a bit about this Egyptian stuff, or had you already talked about it? I don't think you finished talking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've got the pyramids that collect the energy and everything, and you've got that. But now that we get into the technology, the symbols that a lot of people are translating, they're translating like the Ankh. They're saying, oh, well, the Ankh represents, life, eternal life. And then some say, well, it represents eternal death. And then there's others, well, it's this, it's that. Well, if you look at the hieroglyphs behind it, and you actually see what they match up to, you can see that there are symbolisms for actual technology, actual wisdom, usable wisdom. Because if you think about it, why would a ancient, incredibly wise civilization spend all their time and all their wisdom creating these massive monuments and then lining their walls with all these writings and pictures being the easiest things for somebody of another culture or another time to understand what's trying to be related or said? So they did it in their own way, creating the hieroglyphs and the pictographs, even though they had their own writing, which was they got like Sanskrit, and they had, a couple other things, but all of these writings and whatnot, I believe they understood were made for the relaying of information, of their actual wisdom, what they did, what they knew. When you see stuff with plants and them working with, food and stuff like that, I believe that within those symbols, it doesn't say stuff like the oxen and, the cow and, the midday sun, stuff like that. I honestly believe that it's saying like, hey, if you do this and this right here, the energy from the electromagnetic field, blah, 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 with this frequency, it can stimulate the plants to create a growth and a health that da 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 and a blend, stuff like that. You know, the Ankh represents electromagnetism. And then the Was scepter represents where is it?
Do you know the one
It
thing that
represents
artists
power.
noticed? Artists noticed.
Huh?
Remember the other day we were talking about these electrical arcs that had happened.
Yeah.
Well, artists noticed by the positive ones, all the trees grow there. Millions of trees will grow around one of the strikes.
Well,
Yeah.
I can explain it very short that indeed near those strike zones, most of the trees are growing, and if you see the surrounding areas, you almost see no trees. And what is also interesting that all those pushed out of the ground mountains, and that they clearly pushed out of the ground, are almost, I think they all, maybe not to my knowledge, all of them are mineral rich or metal rich. Because actually, if also in those craters, but also on those mountains, you can see most of the time they are excavating it because of fluoride or iron or copper or whatever. So those electrical discharges on the earth attract minerals or even make minerals, who knows. And that's every time the case. So that's very interesting that you always have those on those strike zones that you can see that there are most of the trees are in that place, and the trees, the soil is fertilized more than the surrounding area, because most of the time, if the surrounding areas have trees, the largest trees are growing in that specific area.
Yeah, I believe that the minerals are created because the energies that are being pumped into the ground are being collected by these minerals, and there's so much energy getting collected in certain pockets and areas. The energy turns into an actual electrical force that starts to melt all the other material or starts to combine it into an energy altogether, and that creates different minerals and different materials within it itself. Then the natural vibrations of the earth will push away these different materials and these different sediments and whatnot from these magma pockets and these mineral veins that are of different densities that'll be carried differently based off of the vibrations of the earth.
And that makes sense.
I was just wondering, you know, like if the pyramids, like you're saying, if the hieroglyphs are all about if you do this and if you do that, then they're making these fields there, aren't they? Fields. I don't mean fields as in land. I mean energy fields or frequency.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So just like you know how Tesla had that experiment where he used his Tesla coil and his Wardenclyffe tower, and he sat down with a light bulb in his hand, and the light bulb produced light. Well, it's because the electromagnetic field produced by his, machine was coursing through the nervous system of the human body. He was able to tap into it because he was within the field, and our bodies are electrical at their source. And he was able to grab a light bulb and hold the end of it and transfer the electromagnetic force in the field in the air through his body into the plug. I believe it was the same thing like out there in Egypt. They were able to take these pyramids and create these force fields around them, or these electromagnetic fields, and these instruments or these technologies that they're using, like the Ankh, not only just represented electromagnetism, but it was an actual instrument. The top of it, the circle, represents the arc of electricity that it created, and then the staff part that it held, and then you've got the JED. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. DJED, the JED. That's like the electric insulator or the battery. That's what allows the power to go into. And then you have the Was, or the power scepter, that was the grounding rod. So you've got the grounding rod that's got the two prongs on the end of it that was able to stick in the ground and was, to be able to keep you from basically dying. And then you've got the battery source that sucked the electromagnetic energy out of the atmosphere, the JED, and then you were able to utilize that energy through the Ankh. But I believe that the Ankh was also a way to or maybe they had different other things for the different frequencies. But I believe that these three different things, which are known as the Egyptian power trio, these three things created a scepter-like object that was basically the object of power back in those days. You were able to do anything with it, depending on the amount of power that you were taking out of the Jed and putting through the Ankh. I believe that you were able to do different frequencies. And the Fibonacci sequence, when it comes to certain frequencies like 432 and 720 and et cetera, well, when you go up, I believe each point of those frequencies is actually a key point to certain things that these frequencies do, whether it's healing or it's levitation or it's, breaking things down, or whether it's cutting or heating or cooling, any number of things that these things can do, or create sound. I believe that the Ankh had the ability to not only utilize the power, but it was able to change the frequency so you could do different things, because they said the Ankh had all sorts of incredible capabilities.
Do you think all the pyramids linked up then? Because you said, this is what they were doing in Egypt, but we're learning here that
it's not the pyramids that link up, it's the ley lines that they're on top of.
Right.
So in a way, they're all connected because they're all on the same ley lines that are all interconnected. It's just the pyramids themselves.
This is what they were doing in Egypt, but they seem to be doing it all over the world. And here,
the
guy, John Carey, he reckons that Silbury Hill is one of the oldest pyramids here in the UK.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's pyramids and places within the plain that people say are different and they're not connected in any way whatsoever, but it's not true. I believe the technology is connected. Why? Because it's the truth. There's nothing different about it. It's not like we use Ford over here and they use Toyota over there. Well, no, it's both technologies are the exact same thing, just, got a different mask over them. They both utilize electromagnetic energy, which is drawn in from the pyramids that create the field, and they both have the same kind of instruments. They just look different, and they have different names. Some of them actually do even look the same. Like the Ankh is actually seen in multiple cultures, not just Egyptian, as well as a couple of these other symbols that I was looking into. Like, this is the main study that I was doing right when you called me up. Huh?
The jet pillar.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited about this right now, because with my studies as far as like the ether and the point of inertia and the toroidal fields and everything and how it explains, I could explain anything with my theory. Like, you name it, I could explain it. The volcanoes, the wind currents, the movement of the stars, sonoluminescence, all of it, because I feel like I've actually found a connecting point between all of these truths. What do we got here?
What I'm showing, that's that's actually a wall in the Karnak temple in Egypt, and I always find that one very fascinating. Because if you look at it, you can see some type of tree over here. It's a very big picture. I was trying to get the biggest pictures as possible. You can see around the shape. The Ankh is also over here, in this corner over here. See, and the jet pillar is also in it. Indeed, you can see. This is the jet pillar over here. Here is the Ankh. So they're using it a lot of times in their symbology.
I believe right there, what we're looking at is was specifically that whole thing. It's not telling a story like a lot of people will want to believe you to think. They'll sit there and they'll tell you, oh, well, this is the story of creation about how the tree of life was created by the god Osiris and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. They've got all the technology sitting here staring you in the face. The one thing that I have not been able to put together as well as some other people is that hook. I don't know what the hook is for. Maybe the hook is a way to change the frequency. Kind of like, what's that musical machine that has the two prongs, and when you go close to it, your electromagnetic field, it changes the tone and you can create music.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what that hook is. Maybe that hook near the wasp scepter power is kind of like changing the frequency. I don't know, but good thought.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know what device you mean. That you actually have an iron rod on an basically a wooden cage, and if you move another rod against it, it makes all kinds of tones like wee wee roo, everything like that. Yeah. I know what you mean. I don't know the name either, but I exactly know what you mean. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to put some of this stuff together, but now that I've like learned this kind of stuff and I'm re-looking back at pictures like this, I see completely different things.
Yeah.
Like that tree of life. Everybody could see it depicted as a tree of life, but I could see it depicted as the Birkeland currents that run through the cosmos and feed everything, or the currents through your nervous system.
You can also see it as a Lindenberg discharge.
Yeah, exactly. Static, I could see. I mean, energy in general. The snake that everybody usually sees, that's usually depicted as something else, but I believe, and as some other people that agree with me, that it's the symbol for electrical current, when electrical current is actually flowing.
In the top also you can see a lot of those zigzag lines just above the tree, a lot of those zigzag lines. That could be that they are actually displaying the electrical current. Those zigzag lines you can see on the top, just above the tree. I've pointed out here.
Are you able to zoom in at all?
Yeah, very far. Yeah, zigzag lines, Ankh.
Yeah, that right there. Yeah, the squiggly lines right there are like electrical currents, and it stands for EN, and there's actually like a small depiction of the Ankh, and it's an explanation into the Ankh, and that's one of the symbols used in it.
Indeed, the Ankh is over here, and you have just below it.
There's the trio right there.
And you have here a snake type thing, and also a pyramid-like shape. So now after that, you have all those electrical currencies. Yeah, I also thought that were electrical currencies. So I'm on the same page in that. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Here again, you have another one, and those steps could be indeed for changing the electrical currencies, so they could influence it with those steps. That also makes sense.
See, look right there in the center of that picture. You've got 3 different Ankhs.
Yeah.
And in between the Ankhs, you have the 2 wasp scepters, right?
Yep.
Maybe I'm right. Maybe the Ankh is like a receiver or a transmitter, and the wasp is the receiver or the transmitter. That's why it's like an electrical circuit. You know, the electromagnetism has to go through the wasp scepter or the circuit, and then continues as electromagnetism and continues to go through a circuit. So maybe right there it's showing that that's like a power. That's a power system of some kind, actually, because at the very bottom you've got somebody that's feeding the bottom of it power, the electromagnetism, and then that's compressing some kind of piston that's creating an electromagnetic flow inside of it. Maybe that symbol right there is depicting like coils. Maybe that means coils because it's flowing electricity and it's got the connectors between it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. See, I'm loving looking at stuff like this now. I need to figure out what that hook means.
I've got a few pictures I want to send, but I was just trying to present them then, and it didn't want to do it. It just wanted to present the actual, with the Ankh on it. Richard Burke from the chat group sent them to me.
Okay.
I've saved them to my pictures, but it's not showing them.
No. And sometimes you have to wait for just a moment, and sometimes for all of a sudden it works. Sometimes they also have a bug that for some reason it doesn't work for some strange reason.
Yep. It's amazing once you start getting into all this stuff, guys.
Oh yeah.
It's truly amazing. I like when I once I get my journal all done, all my theories and everything all put together, I think I'm gonna buy a book, and I'm gonna like try to put a book together of the whole thing on, start to finish in an order that would make sense to everybody, so they understood everything that I'm understanding.
Yeah, indeed, just your views on what you think it is, and sometimes it's great to have different views, because sometimes I agree a lot with what you're saying. It makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love these hangouts. A lot of people bring different philosophies to the table, and often you think, "Oh, I never thought of that. Oh, that makes sense."
I love that. That's what I love about perceptual thinking, looking at somebody's else's perception on how they're able to see things, and it just gives a whole new actual view, not a visual view, but like a view on reality, new way on thinking.
Just like you said, that thing on that picture looks like a tree, but now I looked into electrical discharges. I think, oh, wait a second, that it could also be. it makes more sense that it's actually a Lindenberg figure, much more than a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since you have somebody huddled down around it, and it looks like there's an electrical discharge coming around all around that person, maybe that's a depiction showing that human beings have an electromagnetic field around us as well, and maybe this is a way for technology to tap into it. Maybe this is a medical diagram, and they're like, hey, these are medical instruments, and we're able to use these in order to tap into the human electromagnetic field to change it in these ways. I mean, it looks like he's holding certain things. There's a lot going on in the background. I mean, I see all those lines as the currents, and then the leaves are kind of like the toroidal flows, or the vortexual flows, the way that energy flows. If you imagine those petals spinning instead of being solitary like that. Yeah.
Artist, I've sent you a couple of pictures. I can't show them. Do you think you can? I've sent them to Messenger. They're exactly what you've just been talking about in that picture, but Richard Burke's caught them in his own picture of the sun.
In the back chat, or?
No, I sent it to Messenger.
Facebook?
Yeah, and then I'm going to send you this last one.
Oh yeah,
that's actually an incredible thing. That reminded me of what you just said was the symbol of the Ankh. How it looks like a cross minus the top part has a head instead of a line. That symbol, apparently, at a microscopic level, is the symbol that is seen when a plasma discharge goes off. So the actual discharge itself creates that pattern.
Yeah.
At a microscopic level, right when it creates the discharge, apparently. So, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, it's all amazing. Can you show the pictures, Artist?
Yeah, I just got them from you. Yeah.
I've got one more of a plane going in front of the moon.
Okay. Yeah.
You'll like these, Mathew.
Yeah, you can. For some reason. I have to put them up, of course. Just a second. Hope it works.
Sorry, I have my camera off. I'd let you guys see me. I don't like being down. I'm just trying to eat right now. I don't like eating in front of people.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I have to close something down actually to show them, because... Oh, come on. Just a second, Karen.
I had a problem. I can send them to Mathew so he can see if you can't get them up.
Well, sometimes it takes a second. Because the bandwidth takes a lot of the memory of my computer.
Yeah, we all have that problem.
You guys, you know what another really cool thing is? When you start seeing this knowledge, and you start looking at these symbols differently rather than just a philosophical or spiritual sense, which really makes me shudder when trying to study certain things. Like when I studied, Freemasonry and symbology revolving around stuff like that, it made me shudder because I only thought of it in a philosophical kind of spiritual sense, like, the life of death and the death of life and this and that and whatnot. And now I'm like, now that I look back on some of my old, studies, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this symbol did not. This is actually a freaking formula right here. I'm actually thinking about it right now, and I have some old, really, really hard to find information on the philosopher's stone, aka the chemical reaction to turn materials into gold or silver. And I'm thinking about it right now.
Now you're talking.
And I'm thinking maybe those maybe those symbols actually were like a recipe to create these technologies for these things. I'm looking at things so much more differently than I ever was before, and it's amazing.
When you look back at the angelic language and such, you start to find it is all about the elements and alchemy. That's all it's about. I don't know if you
well, even the angelic languages like Enochian and stuff like that a lot of people talk about, that you can stretch those stories back to the Sumerian days once again, and that could go even further back to the antediluvian days. The antediluvian days were before everything else. It's where everything originated: language, science, knowledge, everything. And then from there on, after the Tower of Babel and whatnot, everything got scattered. Everything got turned into its own perception. Now everything wasn't thinking in one mind with one set of rules and laws and logics. Now all of a sudden, this guy's logic is a philosophical representation of this guy's logic over here, and they basically mean the same thing, but now the end truth of it, the sum of it, is scattered because they decided to use their own philosophical insights as to what they were looking at or seeing. One person sees a square, the other guy sees a rectangle, this guy sees a triangle, and you're all like, wait, what? But it's only one thing. You're just seeing it at different angles, so you're just seeing different shapes, but there's only one truth, and that's in the middle. Well, I'm going based off of the people that were before everybody else, mostly because that's where all other knowledge started to scatter and started to kind of die down. Because we heard of places like Atlantis, which I believe was antediluvian, and a place like Atlantis, which I believe was antediluvian, we hear stories about how stupidly magnificent it was. It was beyond our wildest imaginations. People try to explain its magnificence and can't, because of the magic and the sorcery and the science that was all around them. It was almost as if they were in a dream. Like, I've heard so many things about Atlantis, and I believe that's because it was pure knowledge of the fallen, pure knowledge of the Nephilim, those that had knowledge from God himself, that was passed down to Adam, who passed it down to his children, who kept passing it down until, finally the or the line of Cain started to intermingle. And then those truths started becoming something else. They started to get diluted. But before then, when it was still pure, I believe that was the Atlantis days, when, you walked into the city and it's almost as if magic actually was real, like we know about it today, but it was just technology that we can't express or explain. Yeah, look at that. The plasma discharge, the Ankh.
Yeah, awesome. There you go. Richard Burt from the chat room. Thank you, Richard. He sent those. Yeah. There's 2 of them.
Yeah, I can show you the other one. This is the other one.
Must admit, I don't know if I've ever seen that before in a picture. Taking
That's awesome.
Thank you, Richard.
What I saw right there was 2 toroidal flows. Right there in that picture, 2 toroidal flows, because if those 2 circles created the inside vortex of the torus, you've got 2 toroidal flows, and in the middle of it, you've got the electromagnetic source, the ball of energy, where all the energy is seeking and pushing back out.
That can't be a camera flare, can it?
Huh?
That's not a camera flare, is it?
Well, I have no idea, honestly. I took like a half a
Is
semester
that a
worth of
plane? There's a
photography.
plane in the sky. On that picture before, look, isn't that a plane? Huh. Anyway, there's one more, isn't there, artist? This isn't really to do with that, but he wanted you to see those, Mathew, because he had those on his camera.
Yeah. Oh, you sent one more, Karen?
Yeah, I sent one of the moon, because
Oh,
me and artists were talking today and saying how close the moon looked. I even told FPV, and it's a bit like the moon's just there. And this person took a picture of a plane going in front of the moon.
Oh, yeah, I have them. It's a small picture.
Yeah,
but,
thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Richard always sends me a lot of interesting things.
Oh, you guys. Okay, so now I got to go into my phone. I have this theory I just updated about the sun and the moon, okay? So, where do you guys all stand when it comes to Ketu and Rahu?
So those pictures were taken when there was an eclipse, by the way. That's what he's just written in the chat room.
Nice.
Well, I wasn't sure if they were sort of real, and then occasionally you see a video where this thing's swinging around and you think, oh, well, maybe it is real then. But Santos has them in there.
Well, I was thinking, due to the
Rahu and Ketu, I don't know if you watched my video yet, but my video does come from a technological instruction, and what we can relate from scripture. Doesn't matter whose scripture either. I've looked at Hindu scripture, I've looked at the Christian scripture, and ask a lot within my video relating, and they're all telling the same story but the same thing. And it's a technological construct. Now, Rahu and Ketu, in my opinion, was in the sky on opposite sides of the world. And that's where you're getting the sun and moon going around these said halos. Now, the halos are projected through technology below ground. You've got a quick mind. I've been listening. You'd pick it up quick what I'm getting at if you watch this video. It's a 30-minute video.
No, I'll definitely check that out.
I've done a few more since. The double helix, I've already picked that up on the map.
Nice.
You know, we picked it up on the Mimic map last December. And we're now putting that down to technology switching on and off below ground seasons. Now, the technology is, we would call them angels or deities of such, 3 in the center and 48 external in the 4 corners, 12 in each corner. And these are the portals that Enoch was describing. It also comes with the which project from these external points towards the inside of the world, roughly around the center of the world, not quite north, just Western Africa, which we're now finding is the Garden of Eden. Now below us we've got a very technological constructed underworld, and the gateway to it is Antarctica, which is why they won't let you there. And this is what the 1900s was all about, technology and equipment to Antarctica. And that's what they've been doing ever since, and this is why they're lying. This is why you cannot go to Antarctica, for that matter, because you will see the sun and moon doing things that aren't normal, because all they're doing is going around electromagnetic halos, and the Hindu religion leaves. And you've got the deity sitting upon them. Well, the deity is actually below. The videos we've captured of people capturing sun dogs, these are the actual halos projected from below, and CERN is a reverse engineered one out under the ground. Look at the layout under the ground, you've got the halo, and they're identifiable as well. You know, if I've seen CERN's halo in the sky, spray a bit of barium in the sky and you'll start seeing them. Barium illuminates geomagnetic field lines. So when people are recording these, what they call sun dogs with the complete halo, and this is actually technology from below being projected upwards, and it's what the sun and moon are using to navigate the skies. Now that's just layer 1. layer 2, obviously Venus and such, you know, layers above this, and this is what probably the dome. Now we're talking hundreds of these technology. The map we're using, I've overlaid the Nazca line grid to the Nazca mandala, Peru. The sun star of Peru is actually the ley lines, and the sun and moon paths follow these ley lines, and they're guided by the halos in the sky, 6 halos in the sky. And there's also lots and lots of smaller ones in between these large ones. You know, the large ones we would call the tropics.
Do you think it's possible that those halos are caused by the when an electromagnetic field is created, the visual effect of it may disperse, but the field itself will actually remain for a time after, kind of like this dispersal that just happened over Vegas and over Russia that everybody's seen is a new plasma dispersal system, and it creates an electromagnetic field in the air that they're able to manipulate. Well, the rocket, the sighting, that's obviously gone. But right now, over Vegas and over the area of Russia where those sightings happened, there's an electromagnetic field in the air right now, and it's going to continue to be there until its energy has run its course. Well, I think it's the same thing right here. The sun, it's going in this, in this analemma for so long that it's got this constant kind of, burst of energy all around it at all times. And it becomes more visual just because of how long it's been going, for whether it's been going for 1,000,000 years or 10,000 years or whatever it is. It's been going for so long that it's now saturated the field around it that it's producing. It's saturated an area of that field around it where the energy is most concentrated, and that's starting to become a visual manifestation.
I think a lot of the visual manifestations are coming from what we've been pumping into the atmosphere. I think that's why the original band, was it CFCs from aerosols?
I looked in that too, but it's just the fact that they saw sundogs before we had this tech.
Yeah, so, it could be anything that's making them sure. But we're not
it's just like when people used to say that asteroids and comets were produced by our government. I used to have flat earthers tell me that, asteroids are fake. They're really just, government airplanes shooting out these, special rockets. And I'm like, okay, that makes great sense. Well, how do you explain the asteroids and the stuff that people saw, 1,000 years ago? Oh,
yeah,
well.
Yeah, I've had that one with someone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that's where I started too, though. I started off with those kind of truths, and then I moved on from them because I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't really make sense. When you start looking at demons and devils, I started to realize what it's describing as different manifestations of energy. It's not, it's not something to be scared of. It's probably electrical forms of energy. Various forms of energy is what it's trying to describe, in my opinion. And over time, it's been turned into a biblical, scary story. The further you go back, the further you realize it's talking about technology and energy. Mm-hmm. I came to that conclusion about 8 months ago, say, and all my research has been based upon that. And what we see now, these, like I say, these sundogs, the configuration of them is too identical to CERN, to not be true. And you can see them everywhere; they're popping up everywhere. So, I put it down to what's being sprayed in the atmosphere. And of course, barium blown around the atmosphere. Because don't forget, when they're starting the CERN units up, they're going to have to spray barium to see where their halo is in the sky. Because don't forget, this would reroute the sun or moon if they got near it. So there's only certain zones they can use it, I would imagine. And you've got to work out then what is it they're using for, because this technology's got different uses. You've got your creator, your maintainer, your destroyer. There's various uses for this technology. Now I've nailed it down to an angel below and the halo above is what's creating the volcanoes, and the inductions running between is what causes them to erupt when the volcano gets to a certain altitude. Yeah, don't forget, this technology is making landmass grow.
It does. It does. I can show you FPV. You basically that point you showed in Africa, that center point is over here. Eh?
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting that if you actually zoom in on Africa, on that line, actually that line you have in your presentation from those halos, here it goes, here the push-stop landmass that makes islands, but they all in a row, exactly in a row. Actually, when you go to the here, you can see in volcano, Mount Cameroon. See, you can see that there was...
Is that underneath one of the larger halos, is it, RTs, yeah?
It's exactly on that line. You have that center point in Africa, and you have exactly that line you have on your presentation of the halos. This is exactly 100% the line. What is also interesting, you have those, like I showed, those islands, and then when it gets on the land, you have this, and again a big volcanic activity. And if you go a little bit further, I thought, well, let's go on with that line. And actually here, you have your one crater. See, there you go, exactly on that line. That line goes over here, over this city almost. Yeah. So very close to the line, one crater. So I thought, well, that makes sense. It's actually on that, you can see, if I zoom out, it's harder to see, but actually that line goes over here, so it's very near that crater. And if you go further, somewhere over here, you have another one. Well, you have a couple of them on that, here. This one is even bigger, see?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I suspected,
and
you know,
this one is exactly on the line. You can see basically two craters. Yeah.
I suspect that, you know, you follow these halos or the grid around, you're going to find sites like this or ancient sites built upon them for harvesting energy.
Here. It goes on the Earth.
The little points.
Yeah, indeed, it goes on the Earth. That's one. Here was one. Here's two. If you actually go that course, let's see if I can try to do it as straight as possible. Here you can see here another one. See here. Makes sense. Here one. Here exactly on that line. This one. See. This one. Yeah. Exactly on that line.
You follow it around on the map we're using. It'll follow the halo precisely. I would imagine.
Yeah. If you're some side tracks like you always have, but it's actually on that line. You go there, you go there, you go there, go further, you go further, you go further. Here again, another two. Go further, go further. I like doing this. Go further. Actually,
those look like electrical lines to me.
Yeah, that they are.
Exactly what they are. You know, you got the ley lines below and the halos above, and this is what's causing all this.
You guys know that map that looks like a big rectangle, and it's supposedly a map of the spherical Earth, and it's just made into a rectangle, and it has kind of like a sine wave through the middle of it to show the equator and the different, you know, the equinox and stuff. You know that map I'm talking about? I forget what it's called.
That's probably the one we're using now, is it?
Is that the map from the map from the 50s from Buckminster Fuller?
No, it's the one that shows you the entire Earth. That's supposedly the globe Earth, but it's just a rectangle, and it's all the continents in a line. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but it looks like
something that I noticed. It's not that one either.
You see that there?
It's not that
one we're
one.
using, and it's.
I think it's a Mercator map or something like that. A Mercator or something like that, because it's just a rectangle. Anyways, if you look at it and you look up a map, that style map only showing the Earth's deserts, they actually make a circle. If you were to take that rectangular map of the supposed heliocentric Earth, and you were to take it and curl it into a circle, those deserts make a perfect circle. A perfect circle. Not a full, like, filled in circle, but like a donut circle around the center of the Earth, of the flat Earth.
Apps kind of based off on what you're looking at here. This one, it was ripped from Google Earth, and it had the algorithm by series. It was created into a ball. So what you're seeing here is it unraveled from the ball. is not showing its full scale there. It's quite vast, Antarctica. That's just, but we have got the full image of Antarctica. And what you're looking at there is the ley lines and the halos overlaid on this as a grid. Everything's, it's fitting perfectly on this grid. And I think she was in the chat before. Earthquake data also follows this around correctly.
Sorry about
grid. So we're using the earthquake data now to it's the switching going on.
Let's see. Is it maybe this map, the Dimension map? This one? It was made by Minister Fuller.
I've never seen that map before.
This is actually a map made in a early 50s by Buckminster Fuller. If you make it, if you actually glue it together, you get an strange earth with squares, square bits on it, triangle shapes, because he was building in triangle shapes, also his buildings, and therefore I thought maybe. And also, what is interesting in this map, you don't have the distortion of the countries. See, actually, Australia and everything, and Africa. So yeah, you can cut this one piece off of Antarctica. Of course.
Antarctica.
You can cut this off. There's a line, so you can cut this off, and then you actually have a nice flat Earth map. And that's why I don't understand why they use the distorted map. Because actually, this Buckminster Fuller, you only have to color in the oceans and you're finished. And that was already in the 50s, so.
Artist, I've sent you something, a little video. It's not my work. I found it on the internet. You don't need a volume because there's someone is talking, but I bet if you showed Mathew, he'd like it.
Okay.
Even it's probably CGI, some of it, but they're explaining electromagnetic fields.
Okay, I can play it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to play it to show Mathew?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to see it.
He'd say that's brilliant, or that's a load of rubbish.
Well,
no, I'd love to see it. Also, if you guys had any questions as far as my theory goes, don't hesitate to ask.
Well, most of that falls in line with what we've been doing. Yeah, you can see that. Sorry, I've made this video, but it's not my work.
You can see my screen, Karen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I will play it.
Yeah, you can talk over the top. Because unless you want to hear the word. Oh, you can't play the words anyway, can you,
No.
Artist?
No, I don't. My speakers aren't working.
Yeah, it's just showing what electromagnetics is like. But it would be nice to hear the noise because it explains it, as if they're pulling and twigging and.
What is that? What is this a video of? What's going on right now?
It's how it works.
What I can try.
I need this video to study.
What I can try is maybe put my headphones on my microphone as hard as possible. Maybe you can hear something. Shall I try that?
Go on then, Artist.
Yeah, who knows?
I'll send it to Mathew as well.
I don't know if that works, or?
No, we can't hear anything. We can. Yeah, we can.
The description that scientists often use is hairy ball. Some of the hair is ingrown, so that the loop is attached to the sun at both ends. But some of the hair goes waving out, and when stuff gets on that open field line, it can stream out and become the solar wind. How hairy it is depends on where we are in the solar cycle. As active regions begin to emerge from the photosphere, it gets very messy. So it gets hairier and hairier and messier as the solar cycle progresses.
And there's no active region. Magnetic field can be generated just by the turbulent motion itself. When you see is that all the magnetic field tends to be crushed and centralized in these intergranular lanes between the bubbles. So if you're looking at the surface, you see these little dancing dots, and they'll appear, they'll emerge, and then they'll move around, and they'll hit each other, and they'll cancel. Or things happen on many different time scales. Photons take hundreds of thousands of years to random walk their way from the core all the way up to where we see the photosphere, yet millions of a second reconnection or something completely changes the topology that's going on. Any particle that is charged knows what the magnetic field around it is doing, and it has to move in a direction that's at least in part governed by the magnetic field. If you have a closed loop of magnetic field, particles moving in that magnetic field will move in such a way that they will never leave. They orbit the magnetic
This
field.
is slowly but surely helping my study, or helping like conclude my study as far as energy travel goes.
If you're above one given region of Mars's surface, you might see magnetic field lines bursting out straight towards you. And as they get closer to you, they start to curve away and they turn so that they zoom off into the distance, and then they bend back and they go diving back down. But you're not seeing just one of these. You see this happening all around you.
Essentially, this is like a bar magnet. The magnetic field lines go from the positive pole to the negative pole, almost like circular. In the Arctic, where the magnetic field lines go a long, long way out, away from the Earth, if you go far enough away, they get so weak that the field that is being brought here by the solar wind from the sun actually interacts and almost neutralizes the Earth field. And therefore the particles which are attached to this field can come out and bombard the atmosphere, and that creates the aurora line.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, I've sent it to you, Matthew.
Could you hear anything or not?
We did. It was a little bit low, but it was better than nothing. My
Okay.
computer's just too slow, but I've sent that to Matthew now. He can look at that as many times as he likes. I'm sure it was a bit CGI, but they're just trying to explain what magnetic fields are like.
Yeah, I just put my headphones over the microphone, so I thought then you could actually hear something.
Thank you, Artis.
Yeah. That's the best thing I can do because I don't have speakers.
So we're walking in through those energies all day long. All day long, we're walking through these fields and electromagnetics everywhere.
Well, you can actually hear them if you sometimes when I meditate in the forest, you know what I do? I ground myself in the forest and I meditate. Then my senses get stronger. And sometimes when I'm walking home or bicycling home and walking, sometimes also walk certain parts, you can hear the electric, feel the electric frequency sometimes. And I get certain parts of electric lines that actually, when I walk in my neighborhood, also I can feel them and hear them. You hear an static sound, just like a thousand bees are humming, like zzz, and you go past it and you don't hear it anymore. You walk back and you hear zzz. So actually, I meditate, yeah.
Did you like that, Matthew?
I actually did thoroughly. It was I was looking over my notes as far as energy movement and energy flow, and how it looked like it pretty much matched what my drawings were and what my study was going into. Even though I know it was CGI, but it seemed like a pretty good visual representation of what was actually going on, because you were able to see like the water boiling. You saw the water, but then you were able to see the particulates. Give a visual of the particulates bouncing off of it and see how that actually works. It got my mind thinking about a couple of different things actually.
Mm.
Especially as far as the flow goes, because now I can see that there's the electric flow, there's the magnetic lure, and then there's the electromagnetic flow, which is the basically when energy enters the point of inertia, when it it enters, and then when it exits the point of inertia, that's uh, so it enters as electricity with just or it enters as energy with just you know energy current, dielectric energy, and then it exits as electromagnetic energy. And when electromagnetic current passes through matter, it turns into, or yeah, whenever it passes through matter and exit, it turns into an electric current. So it made me think about that, because it seemed like one of the forces, which to me would be the electromagnetic force, would be the one to seem like it was repelling away from everything. The blue lines where it seemed like it would go towards something and then it would repel away, but then the red lines seemed like they would
Do you know why
navigate towards you.
why I videoed, or I took that bit of video, was that in the work we were following, the person had found the 4 pillars, and then something would have to go over us like that, this magnetic shield thing, whatever it is, firmament, whatever. And I thought maybe, even though that's electromagnetics, it was like that a bit between the poles. That's originally why I did that. Because it was sort of fitting in with this bit of work. But
as far as the poles go,
every day.
As far as the poles go, the poles are created because of a single or a double torus. So like a single torus flow will create a north and a south pole. It's just got the single two with a low output of energy, a negative, and a high put out of energy, a positive. And then when you take those and you put them together, now you've got an equal flow of energy between the two due to the fact of the equal inflow. Actually, here I'll bring that up to help explain that a little bit better for you guys, so you can see what I'm talking about. Can you see the drawings and stuff?
Yeah, we can. Well, I'll just put it on you. Hang on.
Yeah, passed it up. Okay, right here. So this right here, the energy.
A little bit further from the camera, Matthew. A little bit further, yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, so the top of it right here, the energy flow comes in through the force of the point of inertia, and then this is like a regular magnet, a regular solenoid of a magnet. The point of inertia isn't in the middle; it's right here, because as it exits out the center middle, right? So it exits out the center middle, and same thing this way. If you turn it around, it goes in from the outer point and then exits in the center middle. Now, if you put them together, you're going to have an equal. Same, it comes in from the outer, There's the plane of inertia now, and then it exits the outer.
A little bit higher you're drawing now, just a tad, yeah. That's better.
Yeah, so from right here, you've got just the bottom, and it comes out from the center, and then the top comes out from the outer to the center, and then you put them together, and now it comes from the outer in, and then leaves from the outer out, because the plane of inertia is now the center. If that makes sense. That's why there's 2 toroidal flow. That's why there's the dual that comes in, because you've got the one with the high point of energy, the positive, and then the low output, the negative. And then you put the high and the negative and the high and the negative together, and now you've got a constant flow, which creates that toroidal flow now.
It's a little bit higher again. Sorry to say it, but
Yeah. Well, I'm just that's just pretty much all
Sorry,
of it.
just
But
the pictures on the bottom, just go over the edge of it if you hold it low. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's better.
sorry, I like it's not showing up on my phone for some reason. But yeah, so that's pretty much the reason why I think the reason why I think there's the dual and then there's the plane of the inertia right there. If that's just a better way to kind of give it a visualization for you guys, what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
always good.
that video that you just don't come across many like that. Maybe there are hundreds of them, but I haven't seen many like that. So they just interest me as an explanation. I'm not as good as you. I need something to explain it. Whereas you
Okay,
explain it.
well, if you want me to kind of explain the energies that you saw in that video that we were talking about earlier, how is this? Is this good for you guys?
Perfect.
This right here is the magnetic field. As you can see, the magnetic field comes in towards the point of inertia. Why? Because the energy is all seeking inwards, right? Well, when you exit the point of inertia, now you have the electric field, the dielectric field. This is where it's starting to expand out. So right in the middle, when you got them together right here, which is what I've got over here, now you've got the point of inertia in the middle that creates the plane
Again, a
of equilibrium.
little bit higher, higher.
Here, I think I got a better drawing.
All right, artist.
Well,
Huh?
yeah, the page was getting lower and lower, and the last thing he was pointing out, I could hardly see. So
There you go. Just up a tiny
All
bit.
right, sorry about that.
That's it.
All right, so can you see this? See this pretty well?
Yeah. Well done.
Or even this right here is even better because it shows right here where the plane of inertia is. It's sideways, but you've got the flow coming in this way, right? And it comes in, but when it comes back out, it starts coming back out the other way. Well, why is that? Because it hits the plane of inertia, and that's where the pole flips. So you've got the North Pole and the South Pole. You got the two different. So you got to have the two in order for it to be circuit. For it to be a complete full circuit, you have to have the two. Otherwise, just the one doesn't make sense. Otherwise, you would never have an expelling force. Everything would just go in and never come out. It's kind of like time wouldn't exist. Everything would happen all at once. It would just go in. Boom. That's it.
So how come there's peace down here now? How come there's not sort of some whirlwind going on all the time then? Because we know gravity doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, no, gravity. I mean, I could explain gravity just because you've got the plane of equilibrium being what we're on is the largest bit of. So when they say gravity is an effect of mass, in a sense, truth. It's just not the whole truth because that only factors in the amount of force. The larger the mass, everything's gonna attract towards it. Why? Because it has a larger plane of equilibrium. So naturally, all smaller forms of energy would get caught up in that larger form of plane of equilibrium. But the fact that we are on a plane of equilibrium is what proves the flat part to me. Because if it was a ball, this right here could explain gravity too, but it's not because we're on a plane of equilibrium where a ball isn't actually possible. But then you've got other things to back that up, like water and stuff like that. People use other things as proofs for it, kind of like the movement of the stars, stuff like that. But that's more proof is like a stationary planet rather than a flat one, But I like the idea that it's flat. And it's not that I just like it, but it resonates more with me that it's flat because of this science right here. Everything at a microscopic level boils down to this energy flow and pattern. And then you got the point of inertia, magnetism. if everything boils down to that, from the micro to the macro, then why is it any different on Earth? How is Earth all of a sudden this anomaly ball in the middle of a plane of, a plane of equilibrium? How did a spherical ball come to be within the center of this plane when there's only a plane possible? Because it doesn't create a circle. It's not like energy is coming in from every single direction here and there and everywhere and creating a vortex at every point 360 all around at once and then expelling it all around. It actually creates a pattern. You've got your field, your ether field, you got your X, your Y axis, and that's pretty much reality. I mean, there's no way around it.
Well, you've nicely explained that for people to understand, because sometimes, you need to have a little book with you, don't you, with all your drawings in it.
Yeah. Well, that's just all my random research and stuff that I've tried putting together. It makes sense to me, but if somebody else were to open it up and look at it, they wouldn't understand it, because I obviously didn't write down every single thing that I read from the countless amount of material that I have researched.
Do you want to watch a little bit of FPV's work as well? Because obviously his work is showing you your stuff in motion. FPV, do you want to play a little bit of your stuff in the background?
In the foreground.
In the foreground. FPV? FPV.
Oh, I wrote a mail. I can show any of... They have the TV on here. Oh, yes, too much of a background sound. I can show you some of my work, and then maybe after that FPV can show his work.
Yeah, he's just messaged me, so he's there.
Yeah, he said I can't show you any. His TV is. Yeah.
He can't show it.
And not at the moment. He wrote it in a group chat. Here, the side group chat.
Oh, it's too noisy, is it?
Yeah, at the moment. I can show you my work, and maybe after that, if it's less noisy at his end, he can show his work after it.
I love the fact that we're all on the same page here, scientific-wise. Like, I think that all of us put together, if we tried, we can tackle the ancient symbolism and match it to the knowledge, that it's actually trying to talk to us about. Mm-hmm. Since we have this knowledge and this understanding, we can look at these symbols in a whole new light and aspect and use our understanding to debate it and figure out these symbols.
That's what I've been trying to tell you, Matt. We've already been doing that.
Yeah.
Heck, maybe if we've got a few people in here that are engineers, we could try to recreate some of that technology from the past and, put YouTube videos up showing people like, hey, this is how they did this and that. Like, have you guys heard about the rock molding process of ancient technology? It's amazing.
I looked into it, and it's indeed fascinating, because if you actually look at Pumapunku, you probably heard of that place in Bolivia.
Oh, yeah.
And Brian Forrester, you probably also know him. Brian Forrester.
Might better be better with a face on that one. The name's not popping up.
Well, he goes to all those ancient locations and actually takes measurement tools with him and a compass, and he slides them over those stones at Pumapunku. And you can actually see the compass needle turn and exactly 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees on just a small sliding on the surface of those stones. Yeah. So the stones in Pumapunku, those H blocks, have specific magnetic properties, very accurate.
Well, that would make sense, because when you create a polarized field, it takes all of the magnetic and electric directional, patterns and faces them all in the same direction. It creates a dielectric field.
Yep.
So if they used an ancient technology that harnessed frequency and energy to lift those and to place them where they needed to because they were so heavy, that's how they would have done it. I believe that how they shaped all of them to be, those, because some of them have like 12 different angles to them, and it's incredible how close together they fit. I believe that's because what they did is they grinded certain materials down, certain rocks and material down into a dust, and then they used the sun to melt it down into molds, and then when it cooled back down place. And why you can't fit a paper or anything in between them, why they're still not cracked to this day as if they're one piece, is because they use the sun to kind of weld rocks together like we weld metal.
Makes sense. And actually, you can hear I have the video of Brian Forrester. You can see that he slides his compass over those stones in Pumapunku. Here it starts, and he slides a little bit further. See? 90-degree turn.
Yeah.
And these are those famous H blocks. You can see it's at the end, and he slides him back towards it, 90-degree. He slides it off him almost 90-degree again. So you can see they have specific magnetic properties very on those H blocks. So they're made.
It looked like it had an inertial field and everything right there. It had a in and out, and then it had a plane of equilibrium where it may have right there in that video right there. In the center would be the plane. That's the in and the out right there in the center. So maybe in the center is where an object or where they focused the energy into that rock in order to move it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it created a permanent dielectric field. So now the dielectric field within that rock is permanently pointed in those directions.
Yeah. But it was a great engineering skill to actually get those specific things into that rock. Or it was poured probably, because otherwise you couldn't get those specific magnetic properties. It would be almost an impossible task. So I think those H blocks are also poured. It makes sense because they have such a specific magnetic properties. What I also want to show you is this. This is basically, you probably know this is Machu Picchu. And you look at the stones, basically this is the oldest stone in the middle. And they surround it later by something else. If you look at here, this is at Ollantaytambo. These are the older stones. So these are predating the Inca civilization. The Incas built with these rocks around it. And that's every time the case. Here you can see those big blocks. You can't fit the human hair indeed between them. And if you look on top, the Inca civilization repaired this site. They found these monolithic structures and tried to repair them because most of them were partly demolished. And even in Turkey, you have those big blocks fitting on top of each other. You can see also here they try to build something later on. And you can see also these holes in a row. You have often in these monolithic structures these holes in a row. These are just like these seats you also have in Peru that predate the Inca civilization. Here you have against those holes. This is in Baalbek in Lebanon. You see those holes in this huge block that weighs probably over 500 tons.
Yeah.
And here you can see also bigger blocks with those holes in them, and they built on an older foundation that was already there. That's often the case. This is in Iran. Again, those holes and the strange cut out of the rock. Like so you could click something on there or whatever. Here again, this is in Machu Picchu. You have those big blocks with those strange surfaces. You can just made up that some straight shapes on the surface, just slightly. You can here I put a line around it that you can clearly see these are 3 older rocks. And the rest they put on top of it later. Here's just the same. Older, bigger stones, and they built on top of it later. And this is actually the Osiris temple. You can see that's built in the same kind of fashion, because on this wall, those stones also have those same knobs. And they fit also together just very tightly, just in Peru and Bolivia. You can see also there's some strange angling on there. If you zoom in, look, it's not straight. You have some straight corners. And it goes around the corner over here. This is just one block. So that doesn't end. No, to make the structure more strong, they built around the corner. And they do that, this is another temple. This is the family temple of Cafre, also called the Temple of the Sphinx. You can see those big stones. They all almost 100% level. And again, in that structure, you have those corners that are bent around the corner. Here again, you have stones going around the corner. So this is some great engineering skill to make stones like that. And if you go to if you go to Sacsayhuaman in Peru, you have the same type of building. Yeah, they're built in the same type of fashion with stones around the corner, big stones. Just like in here, you can see it almost looks like the same building. Only one is in Egypt and one is in Peru. And you can see those big doorways. Most of the time they're big enough to fit almost a 7-foot person. And again, those knobs on the stones. Yeah, and then you go, if you also look over here, blow it up a little bit, you have those stones that have a strange shape, like this here. See, this corner is strange, yeah? This goes on a corner, 1, 2, 3 corners. And if you look here at this wall this is in Greece, you have also this cornering in this stone. And if you look here, the same strange corners. This is in Greece, so the same type of building skill. That's what I want to point out, that here you can see they build later on with smaller stones, but the biggest stones are the oldest. And this one here before, this is in Bolivia, in Tiwanaku in Bolivia. If you compare that to a structure in Timors in Spain, you can see it's built in the same type of fashion, big stones. Later on, they built smaller stones. And the Romans built on top of it later on with even smaller stones. And this is also in Machu Picchu. You can see old ruins of a civilization and then built on top of it later on. I just want to show you that you have some pictures to look at. Also for the people who are watching.
This has got me even more curious than I was before about these stones and stuff. Because it can't just be by molding. I mean, there's obvious, like, shaping tools and stuff. I've always had an idea that they use some kind of metal cable or metal, string of some kind and sound, vibration, use the vibration within the cable to create perfect line cuts. But I don't know about some of this stuff. It's insane.
Also here in you have on the left, you have the Sayhut site in Peru. And it's cracked in the middle. And it's almost the same stone you can find in the Altar de Sacrificio in Spain. Basically the altar of sacrifice, translated. You can see the similarity. You have here a bigger stair, a smaller stair on the left. Here you have a bigger stair, a smaller stair on the left. And the sizes are roughly the same. This is basically the same size in this picture. You can here I point out the similarity. And if you go even further, this is in one on the left is on the Sphinx in Athens. And one on the right is in Cusco, near Cusco, Peru. You can see the similarity. If you look very careful here, you have a piece sticking out. You could say this is a bench, and then you have this piece sticking out. And here, exactly on the left corner, you have the same piece sticking out. Here you can say this is maybe an armrest. Let's call it an armrest. And here you have the same armrest between. Here you have a false doorway. Here you have a false doorway. And one is in Athens in Greece, and one is in Peru in South America. So a very large distance, and it's built in the same fashion. So that's always very surprising to see. This is just upside down. That you can see that there was a big cataclysm that threw everything around. Here's another false doorway. You can see those lines are diagonal. So the structure was probably, once you can see these blocks in it, was put on an angle. You can also see it was pushed aside. If you look here, those mountains are flattened, like something went through that area and pushed all the mountains and squashed them flat. Here you can see that here in this picture very clear. It's a strange mountain range. I never seen that in my life. So you get these near those strike zones. You get these type of mountains often. But this is not an example of a strike zone. This is in the middle of the strike zone.
Where is that?
This is actually in on the border from Peru to Bolivia. And you have the Lake Titicaca. And if you have Lake Titicaca, it's just on the southwest. I can
looks like a staircase right there, but it's overrun by foliage, but a giant staircase.
If you have a second, I can show you the area actually on the Google Earth, maps. Just a second. Peru. I'm going to show you where that strike zone actually is in that location. Just a second.
I mean, is it just me, or right there between that area, does that not look like a carved out staircase for like a humongous, giant being?
Yeah. Yeah. That looks like it. Yeah. Indeed. Great catch. Yeah. And also on the other side of this over here, if you would walk to the left and then walk upwards, then you have that false doorway, this one. See? And that's also very big for actually a human. And it is here also these strange, you can see this block is old and they built around it. So this was already there. And again, some type of sitting device or staircase, whatever. This is also Puma Punku, I don't know what it is. Strange things that are way older. This is in the XC Kremlin in the Ukraine. You can also see stairs slightly. And if you look inside there, you see the same type of shapes as in Peru. False doorways and things that look like bath, maybe. And let's see the similarity. This is again we're in Ollantaytambo in Peru. And they built around it. This was already there. And they built the smaller stones around it to make it maybe some type of worshipping place, or they always build around these places. Here's another one that strange knobs all around, and you don't know what this is. And this is another one. This is in Turkey. You can see something is blasted away. And it survived. You can see slightly some staircases still, but the rest of the structure is gone. This is also in that same area in Turkey. You can see a big press mark. So it almost looks like one time these rocks became liquid and something pressed in it at some point. So this is interesting. Again, this is also still in Turkey, in those staircases with nothing on there. Maybe there was a statue one day. These are just some things I found. I have lots more, but I won't be as long, not too long of an explanation. You will get the picture, I think, already.
Thanks for that, Artist. You like the giant side, don't you, Mathew?
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe in the antediluvian society.
It used to be smaller though as well, didn't we? I mean, I've been to Marlborough and there's some doors there, and all this row of houses. The doors are only about 5 foot high.
Well, I believe that there was different types of people. I mean, you've got. It says there were giants, back in the day, which hinted at the fact that there weren't just giants. There were also other So there's, you know, the giants, Nephilim, antediluvian, then you had, you know, societies and whatnot. I'm just curious as to what they would be. You know, now that I'm looking into this more, now I'm looking back and I'm starting to think, I'm like, well, you've got humans, you know, you got, you know, the human people, then you got the, you know, angelic, you know, the fallen, and then the Nephilim.
Yeah.
So how many more other types are we not thinking about are real? Because I mean, I know they talk about elfin people. I know that, you know, all this stuff is fairy tale, but it all comes from something, from somewhere. You know, from, you know, the ancient times.
I actually found that site I was showing with that big doorway, those squash mountains. That's over here, and I will zoom out so you can actually see where it is. It is Lake Titicaca over here. You have just the border of Peru and Bolivia. See, so it's over here. And what is interesting, actually here you have an Iron Ridge mountain, an earth strike. And if you follow that path, you can see here the mountains are pushed away. It goes down. I will try to do it slowly so people can catch up. It goes down here. Still, the strike is going. See, the mountains are pushed aside. It goes down. It goes further down. I will do it as slow as possible so everybody can, it has time to sharpen. Here you can see it's still going down. Here it ends. That's the end of the strike zone. And often near those strike zones, you have a big salt lake, just like here, one of the biggest salt lakes. It's almost 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 kilometers across. So this is 60 kilometers. So that's about 30 miles, roughly. And that's what I found on the Earth is all those Earth strikes. You can see this is the end of it. And probably they are excavating it. See? They probably are. Could be. Yeah.
Now I could see why and how they find specific sites to mine and whatnot.
Yep. It's always on those. I can go to India real quick and then I can show you another big strike zone that is very interesting. India. Live research, everybody. I can find this one always very easily. Here you have one big strike over here. Takes some time. Oh, no, don't make it. You can see one big strike zone over here. And then you go a little bit to the left, you have another strike zone. It's over here. Very clear, you can see it even from a high altitude. See, this is a very big strike zone. But this is 2 kilometers, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16. And let's say about 10, 15 miles across to from this point to the end. So that's very far. And if you actually zoom in on this place, you can see that they are mining it. It is very clear that they are mining it. It even says mine 28. So often those strike zones contain metals or they contain minerals. But it proves it. And then what is interesting surrounding this area, you have a lot of ancient sites. Yeah, a lot of ancient sites all over the place. So that's also interesting that near those zones, this is basically the beginning of the strike zone. You have all kinds of temples in this area. Here, this is just one temple in that area, and there are many, many, many more. Here another temple, here another temple. So the buildings knew exactly what they were doing in those times. They were building close near those electrical discharge areas because they were magnetic.
I wonder if all those electric discharge areas are all the areas where Fallen landed or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I base everything that I do immediately right off of like, biblical and flat Earth.
Yeah.
So just hinting at why I immediately come up with these questions.
Sorry, what was did you ask a question? Because my headphones were just shut down for a moment.
Sorry, Matthew, can you repeat that? Artist didn't hear you.
Oh, I was saying maybe each one of the strike zones is a place where one of the Fallen landed.
Oh yeah, yeah, maybe could be. Yeah.
We don't know if this is how we were this all happened when we were being made. I mean, Chris Monk reckoned moments.
What was that?
This energy, a bit like being, it'd have been a bit like, some of the stuff has been picked up and dropped down, even though some of it is all broken, but it didn't get completely destroyed. Things have been picked up and dumped as if it was in a hurricane or something. But these electrical arkings would have been so immense. Everything would have happened in seconds.
Well, you can see, the electrical discharge in Peru and Bolivia, that whole line, it actually goes through a lot of ancient sites in Peru and Bolivia. And they all destroyed. They're all scattered all over the place, things thrown around. And you have other sites that you can clearly see that things were thrown around, sometimes a couple of miles. So it was a strong... And they also, on those electrical discharge sites, you have those spherical balls. So sometimes you can see that spherical balls are still in the process of forming. And sometimes they are formed completely and are completely spherical, but sometimes they are still attached to the surface. Or you can see 3 balls still attached to each other. So they're in the process of going further, and they were just stopped in an instant in the process. So it looks often that the process of that electrical discharge was just a couple of seconds.
Yeah. So mountain ranges and everything was shoved up really quickly.
Yeah, in a couple of seconds.
It's hard for us to
sense. That would explain why we've got like random, massively huge boulders and rocks and formations all over the place that make no sense on how or why they got there. I mean, if these lands and these grounds were pushed up like that because this electrical surge hits the ground, causing a pressure within it to build, blowing it up, creating these mountains immediately within that much force and time, throwing these massive rocks up into the air and out into directions and into random places that would make no sense to us now, but with knowledge like that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you even have in the deserts in, I believe in Turkey, you have big blocks of temples that are just fallen all over the place. Scattered around. Yeah.
It's just hard for us to sort of imagine, but is this how we were made? Or, I mean, like, I think Chris reckoned that these electrical arkings were still happening, but they aren't so big anymore. And he noticed that in some of the older cultures, like in the sky would have been these rings, and they'd have been there for a long time, but they were just getting worse and worse and worse, and they caused these electrical arkings. And he noticed that their headwear looked like the sky with these rings on them. And then one day, ba-bang, it just happened.
Well, something caused it to malfunction in some way. It was a grid that was probably stable, and something happened, and the grid basically malfunctioned and destroyed a lot of really ancient places. I'm not talking about the Egyptian civilization, not the Inca civilization. Probably the civilizations you can clearly see that were built before that time. Probably, I don't know, I have to give an estimate. I would say maybe 2,000 years, or probably even more. because the Egyptians also found certain sites that were already there that also look more ancient and don't have hieroglyphs on them. And in Peru and Bolivia, it's just the same. You can clearly see their civilizations. They were way far before the Inca civilization was there. And the Inca civilization repaired those sites or built their own civilizations around those sites that are far older.
Yeah, but we don't know how old they are. That's the thing, isn't it? And we've been like, it looks like we've been reset a few times. It's just hard to know if this is thousands of years or hundreds of years.
No, that's very hard to tell.
I mean, like, do you remember when Martin Leakey was talking about those buildings?
Mm-hmm.
And they were so Roman-like, and they were saying that they were Victorian, but he didn't think. And then he's wondering whether all these old photographs, which they say are the Victorian ones, was the last people who were here. We're actually looking at their stuff, not the Victorians.
Could be.
You know, they claimed it as that, but we're actually looking at another civilization, another set of us.
Look at
it's just his idea.
Yeah, look at a lot of churches on the earth. Often the foundations of the earth are from an older ancient temple or an ancient structure. I have a lot of pictures of churches being built on ancient sites in all over the place. So the church, people of the church already knew that was some type of interesting site that they could build on, because it had certain specific magnetic things in them, or even other things in there that they clearly could feel, and therefore they built a church on that same site, from on top of an ancient structure.
Yeah, we've noticed that it seemed that there was many more pyramids, and then they've destroyed them, but they kept the bases, and they built on the bases.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or they built churches on them.
Oh, they built a lot of churches on those sites. A lot of them. Yeah, very.
So it's a bit of a shame, really.
It's a shame. Yeah, sometimes they destroyed it so much that you can hardly see the ruins anymore, because they basically scraped everything off it, and only the foundations they left there, and they built on top of the foundations. And
I just thought of something. You know these great big electrical arkings you found? Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about it going across the land and atomizing anything in its way. What about all the water? What about things like when it's happening in the oceans? What happens to the water? Is this where we had the flood?
Yeah, probably. Because some guy did the research in that guy I will talk about before, Brian Forrester. He did some research, and also old tellings from the local people over there. Their real history that they tell to each other, just like a Native American have those very old stories. They also have the original people in Peru that have the old stories. And they tell that there was once a big mudslide. At first it was overflowed by water. So big water. Everything was almost destroyed. First by a strike. Some energy struck the place. Then there was a lot of water. And with the water became a common big mudslide. And it makes sense, because most of the things in Peru and Bolivia are under a thick layer of mud. So it makes sense.
It's always hard to know, isn't it? Because there's such a lack of history. We don't even really know who the pyramid people are. Mathew's saying, like, maybe this is how we were. I don't know. It just seems really incredible that we had this whole civilization that was working like that. and then we had like the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages and all this, and then we've basically had wheels and fires.
Well, something
Well,
happened.
history is not what we thought it is either, though. I mean,
No.
a lot of people look at history in a weird kind of timeline. I even did until I learned a few different facts, which set me off on my love for history. Kind of like Oxford University existed hundreds of years before the Aztec Empire was even founded. That blew my mind. I'm like, you mean Oxford University, a college that was doing science and math and you know, all stuff like that existed hundreds of years before people in America were, you know, chucking spears. Is that what you're telling me right now? And I thought that was just blew my mind. I'm like, so depending on where you were on the plane at the time of history, the advances in technology and the type of peoples that existed and the civilizations and whatnot were at complete and different areas, but at the same time, they had a very specific knowledge that we can't grasp today. We think we're smart today because we could do some cool things, which we can, but compared to the guys back in the past, we got nothing.
Oh no, because we can't duplicate those old structures. We still to this day, we can't duplicate those old sites with those gigantic stones that sometimes weigh over 500 tons. You simply can't do that, and also not make them fit that tight. And also the engineering. If you actually, I saw a video that actually the foundations of the pyramid, I think, was only 0.01 off from actually being 100% level, and that is a great engineering task to make it that level and such a big surface. It's almost impossible to do.
Not just the architecture, but I mean, look at the technology. I mean, we're still having a trouble translating languages and translating pictures on walls and stuff. Whereas the people back in the past, they tried to simplify their knowledge in such a way that they turned it into pictures that they thought we would understand. They you know, that's what I'm thinking that they did. At least they were thinking, you know, maybe people in the future are gonna see this and we're gonna be long gone. So let's try to explain this in a way that they would understand. Maybe they don't know our writing. Maybe it'll be different. So let's use pictures, vision things that everybody can connect with. And we're using it in such a literal way. Like we see a picture of a snake. So we're like, this means serpent. Well, no, it doesn't. That's an electrical current. You see, an electrical current creates a sine wave, and the snake's body, when it moves, creates that kind of pattern. You got to look at the pattern, the shape, the geometric behind the symbols and whatnot. And you see the truth.
It's also with the church. When people couldn't read and write, what was the church doing? They were depicting all the things of the Bible in their windows. Often you have in the church windows the story of Christ telling, or they have frescoes on the wall with the life of Christ. So they were telling their story with pictures because the most of the people couldn't read and write. So that this done to simplify something of a story. So it's done even in the church. They even did it. But it makes sense.
Yeah, it does actually. It does. What do you think about this, everybody else? Everybody seems so very quiet.
I like to say something.
So I'm here. I was just muted.
Go ahead, Judith.
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to this conversation, Mathew. It's, I agree with you about the photo they leave for us. But
can you speak up a little bit, Judith? We can't really hear you, darling.
Oh, I'm sorry. I buy something new and it doesn't help me. Now it's good.
That's better.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, everything is energy. So think about this. If you put your shoes and you go naked on the ground, you get a good energy to your body. So I, I see the pyramid as energy, and you can make a meditation with this shape of the pyramid. You get a good energy. So yeah, it's about the energy. This is how I see it.
Yeah, we've had quite a few hangouts about this as well, Matthew. You know, like we've been live on YouTube for 6 months, and nearly everything that we've ever done seems to go back to electromagnetics. And FPV's had to go there. He's got some very interesting work that I think you should see. I actually sent it to you. Yeah, but so, you know, we've heard a few people's work here, so we can listen. Because, you know, we need you youngsters coming in to change this now, to help with the future.
There's a reason why the times are changing. It's because people are gaining a new understanding. There's people out there that are no longer just taking the word of the so-called scientists and whatnot. They're like, just listen to us. You know, people are like, well, wait a minute. Ever since mathematics started taking over, we have made zero progression in any scientific field. We need to go back to what the people that did make actual progression, who did they study and why? Those people are making those studies and they're presenting them, you know, material today, and people like me are picking up on it and making connections, and like you guys are making connections.
I just find it really sad that, you know, that in a sense that even like this time last century, we're like almost in a sense 100 years behind, because in that time we've gone to petrol and all that kind of stuff, whereas 100 years ago we had electric cars, we had free energy cars, and Tesla, he'd probably died, hadn't he, by now, but you know, he had not long, you know, there was just this technology for all this stuff. And then of course we seem to be bombed out in 2 world wars, and our infrastructure's, you know, knackered. And then of course, oh, it's probably, where did the car companies start? Oh, petrol ones, didn't they start? A lot of them start here. Yeah. And it's just such a shame that, you imagine if they'd kept going with these electric cars, where we would be now. We wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things, because we wouldn't have all the petrol fumes and all this going on. For a start, it'd be cheaper, more economic, the whole thing. It'd be so much better for us.
But the elites wouldn't have as much power as they do, you know? The reason why they're doing this and the reason why they're containing so much of this knowledge is because if the people had this power of their own, then the elites wouldn't be running countries. They wouldn't be, you know, there wouldn't be mayors. There wouldn't be a political system. It would be, every person would own themselves. They would own their own land. They would create their own societies, their own deal, you know, because the knowledge and the wisdom is so practical, and it would be so free and available that anybody would be able to utilize it. So if anybody could utilize the wisdom of the ancients, I could walk outside right now, go find myself a big enough boulder, use the right geometrics and the right frequencies and sound, you know, vibrations and tools and stuff, and I can go out and create myself a little temple, you know, that I can live in, that looks just as beautiful as the most intricately carved ones today. Just because I had, you know, a really good understanding of the ancient ways. And the reason why I think the elites and certain people of, you know, money, they grow up and make it and do so well is because they go to schools, privatized schools, or some of these hermetic ancient mystery schools, and they're taught the actual ancient knowledge, or at least what's known of it and what's not destroyed. They're taught everything that's known about it, and that's why these guys are able to think a certain way, completely different than the normal average public, and they're doing so much better, and they come up with these crazy innovative ideas that nobody's ever thought of.
Yeah, and to us they give Nietzsche.
Sorry, you did?
I said to us, they give the knowledge, they give us. It's Nietzsche. It's a joke. Nietzsche.
True.
Sorry, I missed the joke then. Sorry, you did. I was just looking at the chat room. Yeah. It just seems we did get talking to someone else who something on one of the posts, and we're having a hangout with him tomorrow, and he just reckons that everything is built on fear, and they're marketing the fear, and that's what it's all about, and that's where they make the money, is with fear.
Well,
And so
fear,
they're
not
marketing and
only
making
fear,
us.
but they also utilize materialism. You know, human beings were in our corporeal state. We are very materialistic beings. We are based off of fear and necessity, basically. Just like our comfort is more important than anything else. You know, people would much rather be comfortable and happy than be, you know, knowledgeable and wismatic. You know, it's just the state that we're in right now. I don't know any other better way to explain it.
They have done that, haven't they? Because if there's wars, that affects the petrol. That's fear. The wars create fear. HARP creates fear. Terrorism creates fear. Bombs, killing people, all those things, all to do with fear. The news is fear. Everything is fear, fear, fear. Then you've got like the chat shows. We got Jeremy Carl here who goes on about relationships breaking up, and it's not quite fear, but it is, because now everybody's relationship's got something wrong with them, so everybody's in fear. So, yeah. Alcohol, not water.
It's like fear will keep the people in line, and then the comfort and entertainment will keep people, wanting, meaning the people never start questioning. They'll never want to step out of line as long as they're comfortable and as long as they're distracted. But the way to even have a line in the first place is with the fear. So that's the way I think that the elites are doing it. And then people like us that are seeing this knowledge and making these connections and putting it together, I think that we need to start focusing on, certain civilizations and, start really picking them apart and looking at the technology and everything that they've got and doing, small sessions on those. So that way we could use our combined knowledge to hopefully get somewhere by researching these things and coming to one of these little, talks and sessions and putting all our combined research together and seeing if we might be able to, unravel some of these ancient secrets that people are really, not picking up on, that have been lost. Because they just don't have that specific mindset of energy, frequency, vibration, and electromagnetism,
Yeah. And everything is electromagnetic though, isn't it, as well?
Electromagnetic, but that's due to energy, frequency, and vibration. Without those three things, there is no electromagnetism, and without electromagnetism, there is no electrical current. And if there's no electrical current, then we have no motion. There's no motion. There's no matter. There's no matter. There's no. It's all a huge pool, but it all stems from frequency. I mean, if you go as far back as you possibly can, not small, not whatever, but I'm talking about the beginning. Like if there was a beginning, like, where was the beginning? Where did everything start? Well, it started with frequency. And frequency is thought. And the first thought was God, the intelligence. When he hovered over the waters, or whatever storyline you want to take. And when he first spoke, and all of a sudden creation happened, that, you have to have that thought when you speak. Like I don't just talk, sound, like vibrations don't just create in my vocal cords and get emitted. I create a thought that makes my vocal cords move that emits the vibration, percussion in the air, rarefactions and compressions in the air that you collect in your eardrum and turn into data, which you call sound. You know, it takes that first thought. So as far back as you want to go, it's everything. It starts with that. So frequency, and all of a sudden that just immediately triggered energy and vibration, which immediately triggered time, because in order to go from thought to action or reaction, you need time, which is that moment of change. That way everything doesn't happen all at once. You know, you've got these multiple continuums that all happen because of frequency. First frequency, all of a sudden, boom. That's why science calls it the Big Bang, and God calls it just the creation. You know, he created. You know, Big Bang and created are two of the same words. It's just spoken differently. And if you think about it, when you do frequency and all of a sudden you have all these forces in action that create continuums like space, energy, time, frequency, vibration, energy, all those things all at once are now a continuum factor that must be in order for anything to be, all because of that one initial frequency, which was God. Because without God, without intelligence, there is no frequency.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people, I think a lot more flat earthers, I'm not saying that people who are not flat earthers don't know, but we've got these electrical pulse going on in our brain and in our heart. And a lot of people don't know that.
Well, did you guys know that the impulses from your brain through your nervous system works on the same frequency as the electromagnetic field pulses in the earth? Yeah, it's also connected with the same impulses that go through plants, the same frequency impulses that you can detect from the electro radiation frequency of the stars. It's incredible what the human, you know, frequency electromagnetic field is actually connected to. It's insane.
Probably connected to everything. That's for sure. Yep.
It's pretty much like at your most fundamental, you're connected to the ether because the frequencies are one and the same. They came from the same primal energy.
Yep.
I've seen this couple of connections.
I agree.
When artists were showing us those 1800 slides of when that person did the electrical things and they look like eyes. And then I've written a poem and it goes, your eyes are the window into your soul. Okay, whatever you want to call it, your soul, yeah. And but in a sense, that's when you die, they stop, don't they, moving your eyes. Your eyes have so got to be connected to your soul. It's not just
guys, I did this study on eyes. Here, check this out. I've got to show you this one, you guys. I did a great study on the human eye, actually, and the human body. And this is what I came up. Do you guys see me or the paper?
Yeah, I see you.
I see you at the moment.
All right, I'm going to turn it around.
Yep.
Now you see the paper?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I did this study on eye. Is this too far or is this just good, guys?
That's good.
Fine.
All right, so I did the study, right? And as far as light goes, it bends a few different times in, you know, the textual pattern that I was telling you about, double helix. It hits the first area right here, the cornea, where it bends into the iris, and then when it hits the lens, it bends again, so continuously, before it goes back into the retina, where it's then the image is then formed and turned into data, where it runs along the optic nerve into the occipital lobe of the brain. Well, right here inside the iris, in my opinion, is where all the magic happens. It's the most incredibly amazing, I think, personally, in my research, it's the most incredibly amazing organic thing to ever exist, period, because of the way that it changes. Like, how do I explain it? Do you guys, I don't want to get like some kind of morphic material, basically an organic morphic material. It's called stroma, and it's these tiny little tubes that basically, it's like this fibrous material. It's really hard to explain. I'll read it off here in just a second, but basically when a light force electroradiation hits a certain geometric pattern, it creates a light form that when we get that pattern, that energy pattern back into our brain, we get the vibrational frequency of it, and it hits the retina where that frequency gets turned into the image that we see as light and the pictures that we see, and that's where it travels. And yeah, well, right here, our iris is actually just picking up the frequencies that are being emitted from.
Put the page a little bit higher now. You just slide.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, better.
Yeah, so the light is just coming in. The radiation, the frequency that's bouncing off is coming in, hitting our iris, and our iris within nanoseconds, uncountable speed of time, is changing, interweaving, growing, and disintegrating in order to create all these multiple patterns that'll match the frequency hitting it, so that way we can exactly what's being balanced. It's kind of like sonar, pretty much. The radiation energy, it hits something like this paper, and then it picks up the multiple color frequencies created, the different patterns created. So the white is one pattern, then the blue stripes is another pattern, the red is a pattern, and then the pencil that I put on here with the different materials of the pencil, that's different patterns right there. So radiation from the light is now hitting this. It's coming back, and that frequency is hitting my iris. And my iris at that incredible speed is changing all of those frequencies all at once. So that way I could turn this, which is just energy and frequency, into a picture and into a solid something. It's incredible what your iris does. I think it's the absolute most ingenious, indescribable thing ever.
Like it's like a high-speed fiber optic.
Huh?
Someone in the chat room called Skywatcher, he's put it's like a high-speed fiber optic.
I can see that. I just think that still almost doesn't even give it justice, just because of how amazing it is. Like, to me, light does not travel. Light itself doesn't travel, because light is just a reflection. It's just it's when energy is transferred into another energy, those energies mix, creating a electroradiation. It's like a discharge. And that discharge, the frequency of the discharge is what hits our eye, and then our iris, like I've been explaining, goes back and turns that in from the retina into an image. So light itself doesn't travel, but if you were to think about the speed of light, how it's been explained to us our whole lives, that's the only decent way that I could explain how fast the retina, or I'm sorry, the iris moves and changes its form in order to match multiple frequencies all at once. I mean, imagine watching a movie.
I've just wiped, like, just by my face, but my whole body, my brain went, and I communicated with myself that I was going to wipe my face in a millisecond before I did it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that your action
all the time, but you're not thinking, because you're just moving, aren't you? Just move your hand. But I'm telling myself to move my hand almost at the same time I'm doing it. It's quite incredible.
You subconsciously already know that you're going to make that action before your conscious thought arrives to make the action, and then your action happens. I say that only because everybody, to an extent, experiences what we call precognition. I mean, if you guys think about it, each one of you, I guarantee, at some point in your life, multiple times at that, have had a dream where your dream proceeds as normal, but at the end of the dream, something happens that mixes it in to your waking up in real life. Like, say you're with your friend in your dream and you're traveling through the mountains, and all of a sudden in real life, daylight's coming up and the clock is ticking down and your alarm's going to go off soon. Or your mom is going to be calling you down for breakfast. You don't know this, but the universe knows about it because, whatever reason, I'm not there yet. That's the metaphysical. But you're in your dream, all of a sudden, now you need to get on a train for some reason. Something happens in your dream where you need to travel. And instead of taking a car or a plane, you get on a train. And while you're riding that train, next thing you know, the horn goes off and you wake up and your alarm's is waking you up. And you're like, what the heck? But it's
Can I
because...
just say that
Huh?
before I joined Flat Earth, I would have said that I went to Spirit Group, where you go into kind of meditation, you open up your chakras and you go into and I would have said that sorry, what were you just saying? Oh, it's just gone out of my brain then because I had to think. I thought, see, isn't that awful? I thought, what were you just saying, Matthew?
Well, I was talking about the precognition that you have. It like matches from real life to your dreams. You have a dream, a regular dream that proceeds normally, and then something in real life that's going to wake you up. Right. It all of a sudden changes your dream to match that real life action.
I mean, I've sort of changed my mind a bit about what I think, because even in spirit world, it doesn't seem that anybody comes back. They always say your granddad, your mum, your sister, your friend, your love, whoever it is, they're always on the other side. They can talk to them, but they're never here. They never come back. They're not the next door.
Well, I say you need to be really careful with that. You got to be really, really careful with stuff like that. I was into the spiritual and tried astral projection, all that stuff. And what you start to realize when you get into well, you know what? I can't really tell you to be careful with that because that depends on if you're more faithful or not. Because in the more faithful aspect of it, it could be, fallen angels disguising themselves as something good or something that, like they know that
you get spirit guides. Supposedly you have one that comes with you when you're born, and if you don't ever believe in it, that one will stay with you for the rest of your life. But the more you open yourself up and realize, you could turn around and there's an army of spirit guides. Now, sometimes what would happen to me was it would be a bit like, but unless it's this stuff in the ether, like you're saying, there'd be this bit about travel. And then as I got, this is why I was thinking about travel, because I shouldn't have come this way. I should have gone the other way. So it's the same sort of thing you're talking about. You get a premonition, but sometimes you don't know why you've got it. But if you could see all these connections, because they're happening before they happen. If that makes sense.
Everything's fully interconnected. It's absolutely insane. I mean, time is a real thing. As far as the future goes, it almost seems like that precognition is real. Like we actually can see into the future and know what's going to happen. But it's beyond our subconscious. It's something that's so deep that we can't explain yet. I can't even explain it that well. The only reason why is because I have this paradoxical kind of theory to that. Is in the future, there's an infinite number of possibilities to every action. And if that's true, then how can you see into the future and know that out of that infinite number, you're going to choose that one, and that one's going to be the actual one that happens if there's an infinite number of possibilities. So to me, the future is completely unknown because of the infinite number of possibilities, yet some people feel like they can pinpoint the one possibility that's gonna happen, not only can, but gonna happen out of the unlimited number of possibilities that are there. So I'm like, if that's possible, then actually future tellers and seeing into the future can't be real. But then there's that whole fact that we actually do experience it when we dream, and our dreams move in such a way to where they coalesce and mix with real life.
Yeah. I mean, I've stopped doing it now because I didn't see very nice things, but I used to see things before they happened, but they'd never be the whole story. I'd just get a clip.
Yeah, I did the whole astral projection thing too, for an extent, until I started realizing that every time you did that, you leave your vessel, the vessel that was given to you, that's your only vessel that you're going to lose after you die. And you don't get another one unless, you resurrect for whatever reason. But, you got that. You leave it empty. And when you leave it empty, that's pretty much just like throwing a welcome sign on your body.
I just get a glimpse through someone else's eyes.
No, really? Yeah, not me.
I never
The
felt
astral projection that I would experience was more along the lines of like I would sit there and I would meditate for as long as possible in my bed with just a single sheet over my body. I wouldn't eat or drink anything. I would experience no TV, radio, phone, or nothing for at least the whole day before doing this the next day. And then my whole body would start, like when your leg falls asleep or your foot falls asleep, all of a sudden my whole body starts feeling like that, and it's kind of uncomfortable, but if you can work through it and get past it and like try to just not focus on it, then all of a sudden you have this experience to where I know you felt this before, but like when you're going to sleep, you ever had this feeling to where all of a sudden you just like jerk yourself forward because you felt like you were falling, but you were laying in your bed? Well, your consciousness is about to fall out. It's falling out of your body, and you're about to project. You're about to have a subconscious astral projection. You're going to think it's a dream, but it's actually, you're having a projection. So that
I just
happens.
didn't
So
like
at first
what
I would get that like,
I felt like
huh?
it came to me. It came to me. But
Really?
again, I didn't see very nice things, so I stopped doing it.
That sounds like DMT.
No, it just would happen.
Well, that's amazing. I don't know. I think that everything's interwoven, interconnected. I mean, there's people in the world that, swear that they remember their past lives, or they'll visit a different location in a different country and they'll immediately know all about it. They'll even know about like secret rooms and passages that aren't on the tour list, stuff like that, and they've never been there before. So I think in a way, absolutely everything is 100% interconnected,
Yeah,
especially on an electromagnetic level.
I'd love to see what was going on when two humans, like people came close to each other or other magnetic fields came close to each other. I'd love to see that if you could see it, but we can't see these things, can we? Like you can't see light, you can't see the electromagnetics, these things you can't see.
No, you actually
Like the
can.
stuff that
Like,
talking about the halos, you can't see them either.
well,
You can't see the way.
certain technology has come about that has allowed us to see these things. You can see the electromagnetic field through something called a ferrocell. It's a 2D representation of the electromagnetic field, but you can see it in live action. It's amazing. Uh, I want to try to build a 3D model of it, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. It's going to utilize sound for levitation, so that way I can levitate a ball within a cylindrical glass sphere, and that ball is going to act like the center point, the catalyst that's going to expel the force, the magnetic field, the electromagnetic field, and the sphere is going to act as uh, the field end. So that way we can see in a 3D live action kind of way, suspended in the air without any kind of uh, interference in between the center and the outer wall or the inner wall, kind of like a string or a wire that's always got to be there to hold the center ball up. Well, if you use sound levitation to levitate it all, then there's going to be no interference. So you could actually see a perfect uninterfered representation of the live action field with doing this in a ferrocell sense. It's basically like a 1 micrometer thick of ferrofluid in between these glass, walls. So if I could build something like that and get it to actually work, it would be the first ever representation of a 3D view, of the electromagnetic field. It would be amazing to see the torus in live action.
Are you under the notion like that we might live in a multi-dimensional world, a bit like our bodies are multi-dimensional? Like you say, you can think, breathe, talk, walk, eat, whatever, all at the same time.
I'm personally not.
Sort of explaining this last time, weren't you? That we've made with these 3D eyes, everything's 3D. So, we could be looking at the sun in 3D, but really it's in other dimensions. We just can't see it because we can only see in 3D.
If that's what you mean, then yeah, I absolutely think in that aspect. I mean, even religiously, it speaks about the seen and the unseen. So yeah, 100%.
The
We
way I
can't
sort of
see
put it was that
gamma rays,
maybe
but we
there's
know
all
that
these
they're
other things.
real.
I thought maybe all these other things are there, but I just remember it's quite an old program. I bet you know which one it is, Matthew. This guy from the 60s or 70s, and it's called Flatard. He's using them as Flatland, and he's trying to explain what a 1D person or a 1D object would see. And then it's a bit like he can only go backwards and forwards. He can't see up and down. But then comes an apple, and apple's in 3D. But when the apple's next to him, the only thing that Flatland can recognize is the 4 points where the apple actually meets the ground. And it can sense something there, but it can't see it because the apple's in another dimension. So it doesn't see the apple. It just senses something's there. Do you see what I mean? And so this, I'll have to find it for you. It's quite old, but I just like the way that he explained it. It made me think that this is maybe why we think they've gone to the other side, the other people or the people that have left here, but they're just in a higher dimension. We just can't see. And that was my theory, really. Anyway, I don't know.
If you could find that, I would love to see that. Actually, that's pretty fascinating. I'm curious if you could find that.
Yeah, maybe we can see if artists can play just that bit, and he can do it through his my computer just goes slow. I can see if I could play it. Do you want me to find it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll find it, but you've got to talk for a minute. I'm going to mute myself, so you carry on talking.
Okay, or we can play the mouth harp.
Has anybody else here done any kind of study into the electromagnetic connection between Egyptian symbols and technology?
Not at a great extent. Just you watch some videos about it. That's it. But I
want to start expanding that into the other ancient civilizations too, not just ancient Egypt.
Yeah, all those ancient civilizations have a lot of similarities on every aspect.
I'm mostly curious about the pyramids that they found in Antarctica, supposedly, especially since I believe that Antarctica is the ice ring that's around our flat plane. True, then I'm really curious about that. That's got to be something beyond ancient or something. Maybe those are not actual pyramids like we think they are. Maybe those are foundations of the earth, and that's why pyramids were created in the first place, because before they were overcovered by so much ice. I don't know, I'm taking a shot in the dark here, but maybe it's the actual architectural part of the earth's foundation, and that's why pyramids were created, because they were mimicking that.
Oh, that makes sense. That most of the time what they build, they are mimicking something that already exists. That
that's the only thing that I can think of, honestly, since it's all the way out there in Antarctica and either covered by a mile of ice or it's on the border of the ice wall. It's within the ice wall, which is the border of the flat Earth, which means that foundation of the flat plane. Otherwise it's going to be a pyramid that's over a mile high.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw some pictures of it. Yeah, it's very interesting that you have actually I can, if you have just a moment, I can show you the location. If it works.
Oh yeah, I even saw a video one time. I don't know if it's real or not, honestly.
I don't know either.
It looks real, but it could have been a movie. But it's a picture of these guys in Antarctica, and they're all landing, parachuting into Antarctica, and they see this pyramid in the background, and there's a helicopter that's flying into the entrance of the pyramid. Like, that's how big this entrance is. But it was nuts. All the soldiers were marching into it.
That was on Facebook yesterday, wasn't it? Or the day before, I saw that.
Yeah, it's been.
I saw this a while ago.
Yeah, I saw it almost a month ago. Let's see if I can actually show you the site. From Google Earth. it looks like this. So, can you see this? Probably you can.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of.
I found the location here. You can see if you zoom in close. This is the closest, I think. Maybe, yeah.
It looks
So
like
this
right
is
off to the right there is another one.
here. Yeah.
Another small pyramid right there.
Yeah, too bad. The rest is just pixelated. This area is strange. See? Only this area.
I wonder why.
If you actually, you can see a line over here. See? But that's strange. It's actually, yeah, maybe there's something really interesting over here. Who knows? But I always try to find the location of actually a site they are mentioning, and took me a while, but I found it. You can see again. You can see it's a pyramidal shape, very clear. And also, if you click on it, maybe you can see it on my screen. If I click on it, it's also said Pyramida Antarctica. See? Here. You see that on the bottom of my screen, or can't you see that?
I can't read it, but I can see it.
Yeah, it's Pyramida Antarctica.
Oh, Pyramida Antarctica?
Yeah. That's what it states if you click on it. That's not what I wrote. It's actually when you click on certain things on Google Map, they give you a location and what it is. But that's interesting that they already named it. Yeah.
Pyramida Antarctica. That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Pyramida Antarctica. I want to look that up.
I can blow it up my screen so you can read it better. Can you see now better? Probably can. Over here. Then you have the actually the name.
Pyramida Antarctica.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just blow up my screen so you can read it better. Also, the location is now very visible over here. If people want to find this location, you can probably easily read it now.
I wonder what language that is.
I don't know.
It looks like Polish or German.
Oh, I'm from Germany, so it could be that that's why they write it in that fashion.
Or maybe not German, Russian, maybe, or Polish, but
yeah.
There's other words down here like Zespol, Polar.
Oh yeah, he's looking at it in Germany, Matthew. So it might be
Prakujaci na Antarktici Precicia. Maybe that's Russian.
That could be.
Pretsitsikawo. That sounds like Russian.
Yeah. Oh, that's very
Arctic Rito. 3. Yeah, pyramid. Yeah, look, I'm gonna say Rush. So that's crazy. Apparently, so I wonder if that's marked as that name is because Russia has domain over that specific pyramid.
That could be. If I type it on Google, all those pictures of that pyramidal shape pops up. So that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. They call
That's
it like
assuming that's there as well, because we know they've lied about Antarctica, haven't they? Do you want me to try and see if this video will play then?
Okay.
Okay, I'll present then. Everybody can see that, can they? Yeah?
Yeah.
So here we go.
Well, I don't want to speak for everybody. I can see it.
Large scale structures.
Hey, I just looked it up. It's actually Polish.
Oh.
I was right the first time.
Oh, it's up, isn't it?
Say that space is curved.
It's not going to do it, is it? Sometimes it gets better in a minute. Just give it a couple of seconds.
Sometimes if you pause it for a couple of seconds, it helps.
Okay. Damn annoying.
And you can wait actually till the line goes further. So it loads further, and then you play it goes further. Yeah.
Universe is
Oh, it's so annoying. Just see if it picks up, because sometimes it just gets going. Maybe if I make it a bit small.
finite but unbounded. Whatever are they talking about?
No! Let me just make it a bit smaller. I'm sorry, I have to make it a bit smaller, and it might just play it. I'll cope. Let's just take a few things off. Yeah, I don't need that. Or that. Might just, because I just don't have enough, can't play it. Is there any way you can play it, artist, and put like, oh, who else is going to do it?
We are.
No. Do you reckon you could play it, artist?
Well, I don't have speakers, so that's the problem.
Yeah, but you had your headphones. It was fine.
Yeah, okay, then I will try that. If you give me the link on Facebook, I will play it. Yeah.
Okay, I will stop presenting and then we'll do it that way because it's so annoying. If I can play it when I'm not presenting, it won't. Right, 2 seconds. Let me just give the link. Because he speaks quite nicely, so we can hear what he says.
Okay.
Let me just give you the link. And then you go to about 20, just go to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just pass you the link. Oh, it's so annoying when this happens. It's the same thing. I get the same problem with the bandwidth. I'm putting this in the chat that we're on now on the side here. Can you see that, artist?
Oh, the side did, yeah. I got it.
And just go to 20 minutes.
Okay.
So what it is.
It's only a few minutes long.
Yeah. Got it. All right, let's try it.
Okay. Just have to wait for it to come through.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Okay, I put it on 20 minutes. I think it shows now. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
You need your headphones because he is speaking.
Yeah, okay. Let's go. Let's hope it works again. Yep. Here we go.
Discussing the large-scale structure of the cosmos, astronomers sometimes say that space is curved, or that the universe is finite but unbounded. Whatever are they talking about? Let's imagine that we are perfectly flat. I mean, absolutely flat, and that we live, appropriately enough, in a flatland, a land designed and named by Edwin Abbott, a Shakespearean scholar who lived in Victorian England. Everybody in flatland is, of course, exceptionally flat. We have squares, circles, triangles, we all scurry about, and we can go into our houses and do our flat business. Now, we have width and length, but no height at all. These little cutouts have some little height, but let's ignore that. Let's imagine that these are absolutely flat. That being the case, we know, us flatlanders, about left-right, and we know about forward-back, but we have never heard of up-down. Let us imagine that into flatland, hovering above it, comes a strange three-dimensional creature which, oddly enough, looks like an apple. And the three-dimensional creature sees an attractive, congenial-looking square, watches it enter its house, and decides in a gesture of interdimensional amity to say hello. Hello, says the three-dimensional creature. How are you? I am a visitor from the third dimension. Well, the poor square looks around his closed house, sees no one there, and what's more, has witnessed a greeting coming from his insides, a voice from within. He surely is getting a little worried about his sanity. The three-dimensional creature is unhappy about being considered a psychological aberration, and so he descends to actually enter Flatland. Now, a three-dimensional creature exists in Flatland only partially, only a plane, a cross-section through him can be seen. So, when the three-dimensional creature first reaches Flatland, it's only the points of contact which can be seen. We'll represent that by stamping the apple in this ink pen, placing that image in Flatland. And as the apple were to descend through, slither by Flatland, we would progressively see higher and higher slices, which we can represent by the apple. So the square, as time goes on, sees a set of objects mysteriously appear from nowhere and inside a closed room and change their shape dramatically. His only conclusion could be that he's gone bonkers. Well, the apple might be a little annoyed at this conclusion, and so, not such a friendly gesture from dimension to dimension, makes a contact with the square from below and sends our flat creature fluttering and spinning above Flatland. At first, the square has no idea of what's happening. It's terribly confused. It's utterly outside his experience. After a while, he comes to realize that he is seeing inside closed rooms in Flatland. He is looking inside his fellow flat creatures. He is seeing Flatland from a perspective no one has ever seen it before to his knowledge. Getting into another dimension provides as an incidental benefit a kind of X-ray vision. Now our flat creature slowly descends to the surface, and his friends rush up to see him. From their point of view, he has mysteriously appeared from nowhere. He hasn't walked from somewhere else. He's come from some other place. They say, for heaven's sake, what's happened to you? And the poor square has to say, well, I was in some other mystic dimension called up. And they will pat him on his side and comfort him, or else they'll ask, well, show us, where is that third dimension? Point to it. And the poor square will be unable to comply. What may be more interesting is the other direction in dimensionality. What about the fourth dimension? Now, to approach that, let's consider a cube. We can imagine a cube in the following way. Take a line segment and move it at right angles to itself in equal length. That makes a square. Move that square in equal length at right angles to itself, and you have a cube. Now, this cube, we understand, casts a shadow. And that shadow we recognize. It's, ordinarily drawn in third grade classrooms as two squares with their vertices connected. Now, if we look at the shadow of a three-dimensional object in two dimensions, we see that, in this case, not all the lines appear equal. Not all the angles are right angles. The three-dimensional object has not been perfectly represented in its projection in two dimensions, but that's part of the cost of losing a dimension in the projection. Now, let's take this three-dimensional cube and project it, carry it to a fourth physical dimension. Not that way, not that way, not that way, but at right angles to those three directions. I can't show you what direction that is, but imagine that there is a fourth physical dimension. In that case, we would generate a four-dimensional hypercube, which is also called a tesseract. I cannot show you a tesseract because I and you are trapped in three dimensions. But what I can show you is the shadow in three dimensions of a four-dimensional hypercube or tesseract. This is it. And you can see it's two nested cubes, all the vertices connected by lines. And now the real tesseract in 4 dimensions would have all the lines of equal length and all the angles right angles. That's not what we see here, but that's the penalty of projection. So you see, while we cannot imagine the world of 4 dimensions, we can certainly think about it perfectly well. Now, imagine a universe just like Flatland, truly 2-dimensional, and entirely flat in every direction, but with one exception. Unbeknownst to the inhabitants, their 2-dimensional universe is curved into a 3rd physical dimension, maybe into a sphere, but at any rate, into something entirely outside their experience. Locally, their universe still looks flat enough, but if one of them, much smaller and flatter than me, takes a very long walk along what seems to be a straight line, he would uncover a great mystery. Suppose he marked his starting point here and set off to explore his universe. He never turns around and he never reaches an edge. He doesn't know that his apparently flat universe is actually curved into an enormous sphere. He doesn't sense that he's walking around a globe. Why should his space be curved? Because there's so much matter in this universe that but our Flatlander doesn't know this. After a long while, you'll find he somehow returns to his starting point. There must be a 3rd dimension. Our Flatlander couldn't imagine a 3rd dimension, but he could sure deduce it. Now, increase all the dimensions in this story by 1, and you have something like the situation which many cosmologists think may actually apply to us. We are 3-dimensional creatures trapped in 3 dimensions. We imagine our universe to be flat in 3 dimensions, but maybe it's curved into a 4th. We can talk about a 4th physical dimension, but we can't experience it. No one can point to the 4th dimension. I mean, there's left, right, and there's forward, back, there's up, down, and there's some other directions simultaneously at right angles to those familiar 3 dimensions.
Is that all right, artist? It's not quite finished.
I think it is.
Hey guys, I just thought of something.
No, because he didn't show you the tesseract. He didn't show you the tesseract. Is it finished? It's got another few minutes to go yet. Why is it stuck there?
It says 3 minutes. But...
Yeah, because he's got to finish because he's going to show you the tesseract. Maybe you could move it up a tiny bit. I didn't notice it got stuck.
No, it's stuck. The timer is moving, but the screen is stuck.
Oh, well, he shows you a tesseract. And he's saying again, you can't show it properly because that's the bit about being a 3D person and not being able to see the 4th dimension. But he shows you a tesseract. I don't know why it's done that. I've seen it loads of times. It's played okay.
I don't know.
That's weird. But anyway, you can find him on YouTube. But anyway, what did you think, Matthew?
I actually liked it a lot, and it got me thinking. I don't know why, but it made me remember a. Have you guys seen this? Have you guys seen this video where it's like it's in a environment, granted, but there's like a sewing needle and an electromagnetic current pumped into the sewing needle creates a force around it, and then they put like droplets of water that like circled around the sewing needle and went to the tip of it and then came back around until it went to the end and then came back towards the tip. Have you guys seen that video?
No.
No. It's pretty awesome. It's like a little scientific video, and it's these little water droplets that like circle around in the air, levitate around this needle because of the electromagnetic field around it. and then when they hit the tip, they come back and they come back around. Well, I was just thinking if there's a center and it's a mountain in the center that's kind of like that pole, and it's the electromagnetic center, you know, why all the compasses and everything point north, then what if that's how the sun and the moon are, you know, being moved around? Just like that, how the center is electromagnetically charged, and you got the sun and the moon that are, you know, charged as well, and they're following around with that. And
I
that's
think
why it
that
goes
sounds
up and
quite a lot
down.
like FPV's work, which you haven't seen, but he's gone now, so I can't explain it. But you need to see his work. I sent you his Hangout with it all on.
Yeah, I was
It's
looking up a bunch of videos the other day on Santos and FPV and the group and everything. I was dropping some comments.
yeah, it's incredible though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it just gets
Can
my
I say
mind
something
running.
though, Matthew? It's really
Yeah.
amazing that people like you and FPV and the rest are all looking into research, but I want to know what's on the outside of that. What, just blackness? There's just darkness.
What is blackness? I believe that blackness and darkness,
What's actually
or
around us? What are we in? We've got to be in something.
well, yeah,
Or is it
that's space within the ether. That's what that is. It's space within the ether. You've got the unpolarized field of the ether, right? And once you have the perturbation in the ether, that first frequency that started that, you know, first chain reaction, the continuum that I was talking about, it created a polarized dielectric field, meaning now you have the space within the ether. And now that the dielectric field is polarized, meaning now that it has direction, all of a sudden you've got when God creates, and he creates that point of inertia, that point of gravity that, you know, it doesn't suck anything into it. That's like a common misconception with magnetism, is it doesn't actually pull. It doesn't have a force to it. It's the absence of force. It's the absence of anything. It's the stillness. So that's why energy seeks it, because energy is constantly in motion and it wants to seek its equilibrium, wants to seek a rest, you know, a resting point. So it seeks that point. That's where God speaks, and he's like, you know, create light. You know, boom! All of a sudden, when he creates and he speaks, now you've got that, you know, a new perturbation within the polarized dielectric space, which is now the space within the ether. And that's where you get creation and whatnot, because that dielectric now has motion. That's the energy of the ether. And now it has a direction. It's not just pure entropy, you know. And I don't know, that's as deep as I can get with it. It doesn't get any deeper.
Well, that's pretty deep.
Is there something, I mean, I could explain it in a different way if you need to understand a certain part of it, if you have questions. As far as my personal theory goes, this is the way that I look at it and that I see it. This is how I'm able to explain everything, is by breaking it down to this absolute fundamental of a level. I feel like I'm able to explain things in an aspect and way that others are able to explain, but just not as fundamentally as I can. And I'm not in any way claiming to have some grand, incredible knowledge over everybody else. This is just my personal theory, and it's constantly changing. You know, like when I reposted about the sun and the moon, I had one theory. Now I have two theories about the sun and the moon. So I went up and I updated it. You know, my ideas are changing. I used to think that I had this. If you guys go back on my Facebook and actually on my Instagram, you'll scroll back far enough, you'll see my equation, my creation equation. And it's this massive, huge mathematical physics equation that I put together myself about creation, that included frequency and mass and the Higgs boson and energy and vibration and energy, all the whole thing, you know. And then eventually I just kept moving on and kept moving on. And then I figured out, oh, well, those things are continuums. So that's like a one deal kind of thing. You know, they're not separate in one. They're one, but they're separate, but they're one because they have to be three continuously in order for each one to be. It's really hard to explain. And that's where all of a sudden the God, the three trio God thing came to mind. But then I started thinking, well, there's that one extra that all Trinitarian belief systems seem to forget about when it comes to God. You've got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but then you've got the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Well, the Word is what? The Word is vibration. And in the beginning, time, the Word was with God, meaning vibration was always there. He always had the course of creation. In the beginning, he created. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is what? Creation. So that's pretty much my take on, like I said earlier, my grand unified theory, pulling everything into one. Once you see all three of my theories, as far as metaphysics, faith, and science, then you can pretty much make your own connection. It's really hard for me to make the connection because I start bouncing off all over the place, unless you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you could explain it a little bit more, Mathew, for anybody that's going to watch this video.
As far as which part, I don't know. I've explained so many different things. What part should I try to break down?
You could explain it a bit more. Explain it one more time, because sometimes people have to hear it a few times and then things click in. The last bit, you said you can explain it in another way. Maybe explain it in the other way as well then.
Well, if you as far as like my scientific, religious, and metaphysic views, if you put them all together and everything.
Yeah, just the last bit you were talking about, and you said, well, that's your theory, but I can explain it. You were talking about the whole thing, were you? Because you have been going for 3.5 hours now. I'll just let you know that.
Yeah. Well, we got all kinds of different things that we're going off of right now. I'm trying to think of which specific part that we're talking about. Like I said, I keep going on all these different tangents. I try to explain one thing, but I kind of lead off in all these different directions trying to explain my explanation. Let me see. You've got energy, creation, and vibration. You've got those three things, which without those three things, which is God, in essence, you cannot have the ether and the space within the ether and the energy and everything that's creating within the space within the ether. So the three, energy, frequency, and vibration, is God. That's where Tesla says, if you want to understand the universe, the secrets of the universe, think in terms of vibration, frequency, and energy. God, basically. So if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of God. And then all of a sudden he says, if you want another key to the secrets of the universe, 369, study that one, study those numbers. So I'm like, okay, so 369. I started looking into that, and I'm like, okay, so this is like golden ratio, phi to pi type stuff right here. Okay, so that makes sense. Fibonacci, hypergeometry, that makes sense. The shapes and everything that the world goes based off of, and the movement of how everything goes. So that coalesced as far as the creation bit of it goes, because you've got the geometry and the fractals and everything behind it all. And then he goes on even further as far as his electromagnetism, saying, if out of all my inventions, I'd say my most favorite and my most proud of is his electromagnetic, theories and stuff like that. I was like, okay, so there's got to be something there. Started looking into that kind of stuff. And then he's like, got this photograph that he's staged with of him reading this book. And it's this super staged photograph, and everybody knows about it. He's sitting in front of this massive coil and reading this book, leaning his head on one of his hands. And the book he's reading is Roger Boskovich's Theory of Natural Philosophy. And I started looking into that. And it's just, once I looked into each and every little thing, I started making connections. And of course, this is after I prayed. You know, I did pray and I did ask for a specific understanding. And I believe that I was able to start hitting these connections this fast because of that, you know, honestly, truthfully. I have to throw that in there because I'm going to give the glory to God, period. But as far as the knowledge goes, you know, everything is there. The knowledge is there. It's just the connections needed to be made. And I started finding one after the other. It's based off of specific principles. You've got the continuums. You know, you just got to find which ones go with which, kind of like, you know, frequency, vibration, and energy. Those three are a continuum. Time, space, and matter. Those three are a continuum. And then you've got, you know, continuing after that. Electromagnetism, I don't know, probably goes along with a few different other things that I'm still trying to put everything together. That's why my mind is going like 100 right now.
Yeah. And you've been doing masses of research. Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? Because you think, oh, well, if I learn that, then I know how it's going to work and I can stop then. It's only the beginning. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's a never-ending thing, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, I just made a quote the other day. I said, there's no such thing as destruction on a micro to macro scale in truth and reality. There's only creation. Everybody's like, well, what about how fire destroys a log? And I'm like, well, you see it as it destroying the log. I see it as a chemical reaction of the fire, which is the manifestation of ether energy, which basically is like living energy, I believe. That's fire. I have a whole new theory on that too. I just posted, but you see it as destruction. I see it as the chemical reaction of the fire creating new elemental materials, which is the smoke and the ashes. And they're like, oh, well, the log was better. You could have done stuff. Well, you could do stuff with the ashes and the smoke. Actually, you're able to collect that and concentrate that, get the soot out of that. The soot and the ashes, if you take those and combine them with other materials, you could make, you know, things stronger than concrete that we have today. Like back in the Roman days, everybody's wondering, well, how do the Romans get concrete into the oceans? And their concrete is actually stronger than what we have today. Well, that's because they used volcanic ash, lime, and salt water. Well, there's a chemical reaction at a micro level that the volcanic ash and the salt water, they create a crystal, like a crystalline structure in between each elemental material within its structure, and it actually bonds it in like a crystalline structure, which is the strongest known structure in the world. So that's one of the greatest bonded materials ever created. And
the Romans knew that, didn't they? Like, it's not like they go, oh, well, we have to put seawater in our cement to make it last longer. Well, our houses aren't built with seawater when they should be.
No, exactly. It's and not just that. Our houses, they're just like somebody was saying earlier. They have retracted, you know, as far as their technology goes. They used to live in these grand, beautiful, incredible structures that still survive today. I mean, people are finding inside cave structures, whole civilizations that lived like cities inside of mountains. You know, they could have fit hundreds of thousands of people with, you know, massive areas for staging, and then there's kitchens, there's houses, there's all sorts of areas, storefronts, and it's insane what they found. And you look at what we have today, and it's getting blown away by wind and swept away by water, and you know, torn down by all kinds of different means and whatnot. Like, our structures just don't last. They just don't. Even our metal structures get, you know, destroyed. But these structures from the past that were built off of certain geometric shapes, like the pyramid, and I don't know, there's a few other ones that I've seen that were pretty intense that have lasted through the times. But these shapes and these structures, the way that they built them with the technology, they did it in a way that it's beyond what we know. That's why I keep saying, like, we can't match what they did back in their day. Our technology fails at a specific point. It lasts and then it dies. Their technology back then would still work today. Like the Iraq batteries that they found. They said that they still had a small amount of voltage to them.
And the
when they
Baghdad batteries. Yeah.
huh
The Baghdad batteries, indeed.
yeah those. Yeah, I when I was looking into them, they said that they still actually had a small charge to them when they found them. They were still working, or a few of them, not all of them. They said a few of them were the ones that weren't cracked or leaking or broken or destroyed completely. But I was thinking about it, I'm like, man, talk about perpetual energy. They got batteries from thousands of years ago that are still working now. And our batteries last, if in constant use, like a few hours.
And also, a lot of ancient sites, buildings are earthquake proof. They made them so that they are earthquake proof. They already knew it. And also with the pyramids, there's sometimes the sun shines on a certain side of the pyramids and it gets heated. And therefore it expands. But they made it in such a fashion that it could expand. They already calculated that in.
Yeah.
So that actually proves how much advanced they were in building structures.
Well, what about other stuff that we can't recreate today? Not just including architecture and stuff, or actual physical technology. What about like some of the chemical and knowledgeable things like that? They had ways of turning elements into gold back in the day, like copper into gold and lead into gold. We can't do that anymore. It's a lost alchemy. And they had what was the other thing I was gonna say? There was a couple of other things. Oh,
There's
man.
also that iron pillar of Delhi that doesn't rust. Never rusts.
Yeah. Or the that's what I was gonna say. The Greek fire. Greek fire. The stuff that if you pour water on it, it makes it worse. And we can't. We don't even know that material today. We can't do it. The closest we got is napalm, but that still gets put out by water eventually. It gets snuffed. I'm just saying, like they had knowledge back in the day that we don't. And at that, I think that we're also confusing ourselves. We've screwed up a lot by confusing ourselves through language and translations, because like stuff that we use today called rosemary was used by a different name back in the day when they used to make potions, or they used to make different topicals or different medicines, and it didn't go by the name of rosemary like we use it for food nowadays. It went by a name called something else. I don't know, maybe like wolfbane or something like that. And if we were to look up old recipes, like, hey, there's this old Egyptian recipe, we were able to decipher the scrolls because of this, and and you look at it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. You use this and this and this, and it's like, well, none of these things exist anymore. They're all extinct. Well, no, they're not. It's just they were all translated and transliterated and then translated again, and then the meaning was lost, and then somebody found some kind of key called the Rosetta Stone, and then they translated it again, and then it got mistranslated, and then transliterated, and this is the meaning now. Well, no, it's just it still exists. We just don't know what the hell it is anymore. So it almost seems like even if we did find this technology, unless we found pictures and other means of seeing some of the stuff that it speaks about, we'll never know, just because of all the confusion that's happened since those times.
Mm-hmm.
There are chemicals back then that they say that they talk about, like in the pyramids. Once we start getting those, because I'm going to do this with you guys. I want to work on this. It's going to be a project with us. Once we start deciphering and breaking down all these secrets, decoding all this knowledge from the symbols and stuff, we're going to see the different fluids and different chemicals that they used for the reactions. And hopefully they can match what we got going on today, but I doubt we're going to find words like, aluminum oxide and whatnot that they had back in, ancient Kemet.
We actually have a guy that is very knowledgeable about pyramids. It's called Angel. And he also discusses here on sometimes on Sunday his pyramids findings and his research he did. And he's actually trying to get some money to actually build a pyramid in scale and actually see how it works. So first of all, he wants to make it work like it is now, with all the things that you have now, not added anything to it, just how it is now. And then see what happens if he adds some different things that probably were on there. So we maybe can get in contact with him, because he's very knowledgeable and did a lot of research on the pyramids.
And he'd like to build his own pyramid complex.
Yeah, he already had some squares that he actually can build a pyramid on. Not actually the same scale, but scaled a little bit smaller. But he already had a site that he could build it on. Only has to have the more money actually to build it.
Like I said, we've been going for nearly 4 hours, and we could talk like for another 10 hours probably. But I would just like to ask Matthew, on New Year's Eve, we've got this open evening. It'll be Saturday afternoon for you, because it's like, well, it'll be a few hours ago. What time was it for you when we started?
Yeah, it's fine. I don't have anything going on right now.
What time was it for you when we started? Was it 1 o'clock or was it like 4 o'clock? I can't remember how many hours behind you are now.
It was 1 o'clock. It's 4:46 where I'm at right now.
Okay. What it is that obviously it's Bro and Sanchez have asked for this night again on New Year's Eve, but I thought I'd add people, come on, 10, 20 minutes, half an hour or whatever. And then, yeah, but maybe you can come on New Year's Eve if you're not busy.
Oh, I'm absolutely down.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll put your name down. Do you think that it's a good time to sort of round up this hangout? Because, as I say, you've been going now for 4 hours.
Oh yeah, no, that's up to you guys. At this point, I'm just, gathering extra knowledge and stuff as we're speaking, and I feel like I've gotten out. I didn't get out all my different theories and all my stuff, but I got out my absolute basics that gets me to everywhere that I'm at right now. Everything that I said pretty much paints the picture that connects everything.
Your theories. You can come back another day and explain some more. We'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear them.
Oh yeah. I can talk about like the heat and the cold of the sun and magma and volcanoes and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Save that for the next hangout you are on, and then you can go deeper into that certain side paths you want to discuss.
Awesome. Like one we get Mathew to talk like tonight.
Yeah. And then you can do a presentation and talk some more about these findings. That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have you back soon, Mathew.
Next time we talk, I'm going to go in depth into my ancient symbol breakdown, because that's all I'm going to be doing right now. That's going to be my whole mission in life, is to break down the ancient symbology into decoding it using our key, our specific knowledgeable key that we have come across again from ancient times. None of this spiritual, philosophical stuff, but this electromagnetic knowledge.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so am I. I can't wait. It's going to be a journey for you, me, and everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Artist is already excited.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure. It's nice that such a young man is so clever and intelligent, which I really like. And, we've all talked about the fact that it needs to be some people from the younger generation now to come forward and help. And then I suddenly saw you on Facebook. So I'm so glad that I went on Facebook that day at that point and saw you. Because you were doing a Facebook hangout. You were doing a live stream on Facebook. That's how I saw you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I am trying to figure out ways to expand so that way I can get more people to see it. I'm not looking for followers. I just want more people to see, I don't care about, having some mass. I just want everybody to start thinking on the same wavelength. That's what I want. I want
Yeah,
everybody
like,
to
we're going,
stop
"Oh,
thinking on the
look at those
BS wavelength.
work. Oh, this is how the ether works." You mean like we could actually talk about these in conversations a bit?
Well, yeah, it's a real bummer me walking around and then, I can't hold a single conversation with like any of my friends or anybody. Well, there's a couple people like my best friend that's sitting next to me. I could hold a conversation with her, but that's because she's listened to me study and talk about all this for the last few years. So it's like she's pretty much got it down because of memory wise. If she understands some stuff, then that's awesome.
Yeah, but there are some of
I've
us
explained
that
enough.
sleep and breathe it.
Uh-huh.
There are some of us that eat, sleep, and breathe it. And
Yeah,
then
that's
there are
literally
others
what
that
I
go,
bet.
"Oh, we're
That's
flat.
all I've been
Fine,
doing.
then, we're flat. That'll do for me." And there are other people who understand the workings of it all. FPV's one, you're one, Dave Marsh is one, and it goes on. Stan Smith and the other people that, Chris Monk. Oh, there's loads of people. Artists. There are other people that get much deeper into it.
Well, I can't wait to get back into this with you guys. Like I'm super stoked and excited right now to get into it so that way we can start breaking down what these things are. I'm gonna work on this. If I could break this down and get the actual knowledge out of this on what these symbols are as far as what they represent, electromagnetism and the receiver, transmitter, da da da. But I want to actually see if we can rebuild them and see if they work with the knowledge that I'm using. And if they do, then that's an experiment in its own that solidifies that the way that I'm looking at the symbols with our knowledge and the way that we think about things is proving that our thought process is the correct thought process.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mathew. So I will send you a link on New Year's Day. Stay with us in the after hangout if you like, but we're going to end this hangout. Dojo for parents. He's in the chat room. He loves what you've been saying. He finds it very interesting and can't wait for you to come back and chat. So it's been a really great evening, Mathew, Judith, Patricia, Artist, and FPV. Yeah. And what's the day now? We're back tomorrow. I knew his name. His name's just gone. I've sent so many messages. This is the guy I was telling you about. He's from New Zealand. And he's realized that that fear is the biggest money-making tool that they've got. James Mason is his name. And he's going to come and talk about that tomorrow. So we're back tomorrow evening. Big flat earth hugs for everyone on the panel, everybody in the chat room, and everybody that's going to watch this video. Goodbye from us and see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, Mathew and Artist. Judith, Patricia.
Thank you.
And FP.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.